And welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on X, Pride of Detroit on Blue Sky, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. I think I covered it all. As we come to you live on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit, youtube.com/@Pride of Detroit, or get the podcast wherever you get your podcasts out there. Spotify, iTunes is the rest. Apple Podcasts. I think there's other stuff there. It's mostly Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I don't know many people get. If you get it from anywhere else, congratulations too. Because the cool thing about podcasts, you get it wherever you get podcasts. But we do it live on streaming as well. As we sit here on a Monday, where I have somehow we're all a little bit worse for wear. Some of us from weather, some of us from poor life choices. I am Chris Perfett, the adequate host, very adequate. At Perfett on Blue Sky, at Chris Perfett on X. That other voice you heard there is Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit on Lion on X. Hey, buddy.
What's up, Chris? How we doing?
I am comfortable. I am the head's not comfortable. The body is experiencing a very comfortable temperature, unlike you.
Well, that's okay, because we're here to provide auditory comfort to our listeners.
Well, no one has a more comforting voice than Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD. Next in line for the a DJ on the smooth jazz.
Yeah, give us some of those dulcet tones.
What's Eastern Michigan's jazz station again? I keep forgetting EMU's station.
You're really putting us on the spot. That is not on the outline, Chris.
I know it is not on the outline. That's the only jazz station I remember up around there. Anyway. How are we doing?
Riffing.
Speaking of riffing.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk about the Lions offseason because we're finally in that purgatory place where the offseason's happened, but the offseason's not over and we're waiting for training camp.
I am at least excited to see NBA shut up for a little bit because it does mean football is coming very soon.
It's true. It's somebody told me so many Sundays, and I was like, that doesn't seem like single digit Sundays.
Counting
football.
Down the Sundays.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, we're getting close.
Well, we are a month and a week from Lions in the Hall of Fame game, which still feels surreal. But let's talk about some offseason rankings. We're going to continue this cast this week with talking about the NFC North and running backs, and we have a lot more than just 4 running backs really to talk about here. But first, to begin. We're going to talk how the offseason has been going for the Detroit Lions and an anniversary to mark. So we dived through a bunch of Pro Football Focus numbers the other week. And now this week, the Ringer has handed out offseason grades for teams. And it kind of dives into something we wanted to do, which was offseason superlatives. But I know we like being messy and talking about how other people view the Lions right now. And Jeremy and his eternal quest against the national media for daring to talk about all teams equally. So, putting everyone from the Ringer on the spot, Steven Ruiz gave the Lions a D+. Deontay Lee and Shell Kapadia gave them C's. Now, this is the off-season grades. This is just how it went in the off-season. So, base level discussion comes around. Are these grades fair? Is it going after the Lions a little bit too much for what they have quote-unquote lost through the offseason? Is this still reverberations from the draft? How much of this is really on the Lions? And we could just even do it on our own grades.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I brought this to the podcast discussion is there was a little bit of a discussion in the Pride of Detroit Slack about this, and some people having umbrage with it and some people not having umbrage with it. And I think it just kind of depends on how you want to grade an offseason, right? Because if you want to look at net wins and losses, I think it's probably pretty fair to say that this team suffered more losses than gains this offseason. That doesn't mean they're going to be a worse team necessarily, but you lose both your coordinators, you lose your all-pro center, you lose another member of your starting offensive line, and what did you gain? I mean, not a ton, right? You swapped starting cornerbacks, You drafted a couple guys, but everyone drafted a couple guys. And so, there is a net negative there, but when you give someone a D+ in their offseason ratings, that implies that they made mistakes along the way. And that's the harder thing for me to swallow. Where did the Lions actually make a mistake this offseason, or were the net losses kind of inevitable because you have a limited amount of cap space because you are not going quote unquote all in this season because you want to ensure that you're able to extend all the players that you want to next year and the year after that. And so I get why someone would give this team a D+ in the offseason because I do think it was a net negative, right? Like I think they lost more than they gained, and that's okay. But in a way, I'm almost impressed with how much they were able to keep it together. Because in a lot of ways, I thought there were players that they were going... Like, how many players that the Lions lost in free agency are you that upset about, right? It's Kevin Zeitler, but he signed a $9 million contract, which was significantly more than he made here. Maybe if Fatu Melifonwu, he signed a very... I think it was like 1 year, $3 million deal. Like, maybe you could have afforded that, but... Is there any other losses that were preventable, potentially preventable losses that you're really that upset about?
I don't think that there's any preventable losses. I don't think there's anything that Lions could have done that they didn't do. And that's part of the problem I have with Ruiz, because part of his speculation was that the Lions could have just thrown money at Frank Ragnow and kept him playing football, which if that's informing your D+, I understand why you graded a D+, but then your rating is wrong, and you graded that incorrectly because you weren't working with the information.
Calling Dan Campbell a liar, essentially,
and Frank Ragnow a liar, which is interesting. But D+ seems. I agree, Jeremy, in the sense that like a D+ signifies that there's something they could have done. I would agree with like a C-. And I know that's like splitting hairs, right?
A little bit.
But I think that people look at a D much differently than they look at a C. And grading is all subjective. So who cares about any of these grades that they're throwing out? I think the thing is, no matter what the Lions did this offseason, I mean, I guess we should have asked these people questions like, I don't know, if they go and get an edge rusher, is all of a sudden everybody happy and ecstatic about the Lions and then they get a B?
I think that's exactly what actually would have happened.
Right.
To be fair, right?
Yeah. I mean that very well could have happened, but like, I don't think that there's anything that they could have done in the wake or in the anticipation of eventually losing Frank Ragnow to retirement that would have kept this offseason as like a positively viewed offseason. And I think that this is kind of the life of contending football teams when it comes to free agency. When it comes to the offseason, I think in general, right? Like, it feels like teams are going to lose coordinators. Good football teams are going to lose coordinators. Good football teams are going to lose football players. They're going to lose fringe players. Like, I think this is just another marker in the evolution, and we'll eventually get to the anniversary of Sheila Ford Hamp and her 5th year anniversary of being in control of things. But like, there have been markers along the way of how the Lions organization has grown. And first, that first process where it felt a little bit weird was, oh man, the Lions don't have enough room for all 53 of these guys on their roster. They're actually going to have some players that other teams are looking for the Lions to cut at the end of training camp, and they'll be dipping into that. Like, that was one of the first markers. And then like the next marker was like, okay, like now you have to balance all of these draft picks that you're signing now. And it's like, okay, there's a little bit of like give and take with like the salary.
Too much talent just in general is a new thing.
Yeah. And this is just another marker in it, I think.
Yeah. I do think like a lot of this, besides the free agency, it comes back to, once again, the Lions are getting dogged once again for some of their draft grades. That it is the reach of Tislaw. It is the fact that they didn't take an edge in the draft, even though we keep talking about how they seem to really, they at least are of the belief Marcus Davenport can do this job. And I think a lot of people are just not convinced of that. So they'll have to prove that wrong. They have no other plan besides Davenport really as kind of that top option. And I think as much as people spent, it's all about what you spend the offseason thinking a team should do and whether or not they meet your personal expectations, right? And for the Lions, that I don't know if they were always going to lose their coordinators. I think people expected them to have someone other than like John Morton ready to go. So there's one expectation you didn't have. At the same time, expectation, okay, well, they'll probably get an edge in the draft or something and instead they went interior defensive tackle, guards, which ended up working out for them. But, you know, the big thing was, oh, well, they didn't get an edge, and Tesla was a massive reach. And it's once again like they know they've done this before with Brad Holmes, but we're back once again with like this seems like an incomprehensible reach in a luxury for a position that you're already stocked at. And then top it off with Frank Ragnow. Yeah, there was no way to avoid Frank Ragnow, unless you are of the belief that there was a way to avoid Frank Ragnow, but it does put the Lions still behind the 8 ball. So I think some of it is justified, but I also think that a lot of it is basically expectations that just weren't met on what the Lions were, quote unquote, supposed to do. But the Lions are doing business their own way, and I think at this point you just kind of have to just expect that they seem to know what they're doing in that regard.
Really quick, I wonder if the perception of the Lions offseason would have been different if two things were different. One, if they had hired Tanner Angstrand, because to I think Chris's point, like I think there is a little bit of a negative view of the move that they did make there because they don't view John Morton. Yeah,
John Morton is a retread. That's
he's a retread. He's, you know, we've heard he's old. He's not one of these young Sean McVay types that's just up and coming. Tanner kind of is more of that mold, and I think maybe that would have gotten a more positive response in general. And then the other one is just like all of these edge contract disputes. I wonder if those never happened because, like, let's take lay of the land here. None of those resulted in any teams trading for any of those players, right? Every team failed to land one of those players, but it feels like the Lions are getting especially punished for not making that move because Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last year, and you saw how much their pass rush died when Aiden Hutchinson went down, so they really need someone there. But if those guys are never in contract disputes and just re-sign right away, are we not dogging them for not getting Myles Garrett? Are we not dogging them for not landing Trey Hendrickson? Are we not dogging them for getting, and by us, don't mean literally us, I mean the us at large in terms of the media, and so
sure, but like,
I just wonder how much that would have changed the perception of things.
They even though Max Crosby is repeatedly saying he's staying with the Raiders, people still think that the Lions should get Max Crosby. Like, I don't think that would have changed anything.
Yeah, the old hashtag coming home. Here's the thing that I need to understand, though, is that from a national perspective, because here's the thing. If none of those guys are in contract disputes, there's still going to be, the Lions could have done something. The same way that people have treated Frank Ragnow retiring. Well, they could have thrown money at him, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you live in La La Land, then you can expect La La results. The thing with me and this conversation with Marcus Davenport is if you think the Lions defense hinges on Marcus Davenport, again, send me your address to La La Land and I'll mail you an envelope with the question, did the Lions season last year end after the Arizona Cardinals game? I don't think people were like up in arms and really worried about the Lions defense after Marcus Davenport got injured. But when you replace Aiden Hutchinson with Aiden Hutchinson and hopefully, you know, a healthy and ready to go Aiden Hutchinson, according to himself, well, then I'm not too worried about the other side of the defensive line because the Lions defense wasn't a lost cause after they lost Marcus Davenport last year.
Even with 10 plus games of no Aiden Hutchinson, they still won 15 games on top of everything too. Like, I feel like we have to keep doing this just because the playoff ended the way that it did. But like, and again, that's 15 wins against, like, everyone kept saying this is the year the Bears take step forward. And even result that, like, okay, put the Bears aside, but like, you still took care of the Vikings. Like, this was supposed to be like, look at all this stuff. This is the right time for the Vikings. The Lions swept the Vikings in the season. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have to constantly do apologia for 15 regular season wins just because you didn't beat one of the hottest teams youngest teams in the NFC in your playoff game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, another marker in a franchise that is experiencing success for the first time. It's like when you have that success. And at this point, you know, after the season they had in 2023, a first round exit wasn't what everybody was hoping for. Right. They could have won 17 football games, and a first round loss would have resulted in the same, you know, hangover that the city's been in ever since.
I do want to go really quick back to Frank, just so we can put a button on the criticisms, I guess, of this offseason, because obviously it's a loss. It's huge. But I do, like, if you're pointing to, okay, what could the Lions have done? I don't know if they could have handled it any better, because they've drafted, 4 offensive linemen in the past 2 years. Like, they've been clearly planning for a transition. 5?
Yeah. Giovanni. You got Frazier and Ratledge.
Yep.
You got Mahogany.
Oh, yeah. That's 4.
No, there's a 5th one.
Sorsel was the year before.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
If that's what we were thinking. But either way. The point is, like, they clearly saw that a transition was inevitable on the offensive line, and maybe they weren't thinking necessarily Frank Ragnow, because obviously you have Kevin Zeitler, you have Graham Glasgow, you have Taylor Decker, all guys that are nearing or past 30. But this is what Brad Holmes is always talking about. It was like, I'm not drafting for immediate need, I'm drafting for long-term need. And it just so happens that, like, now all of those needs get pushed a little bit higher, but this is why he drafts for further needs, is so that in case an injury happens, in case something happens, you haven't just filled what you need for 2024 or 2025, you have filled for guys that could potentially take over long-term, and that's what they did with Ratledge, that's what they did with Mahogany, that's what they potentially are doing with Frazier too. And so, like, their offensive line is not as good as it was last year, but they are set to have guys that are capable of starting in all 5 positions, which is something you can't say for all 32 teams with their normal starters, right?
All right, let's move on to some offseason superlatives, which was supposed to be the core of this, and we just got in the weeds there a bit. Because I do think it then does dovetail into what was your favorite offseason moves, least favorite moves, and some stuff that maybe you still want to see the Lions do. So let's talk about it. Favorite offseason move that you have, Jeremy?
Well, I said earlier that I think I was impressed with the Lions' ability to retain their players. And so I think my favorite offseason move was a player that I thought was long gone, and that's Levi Onwuzurike, signing on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Obviously the Lions need as much defensive line depth as possible after last year. They get Tyleik Williams, who is going to be part of the interior conversation, might take away from some of Levi's snaps, but for a guy that had, maybe breakout is an extreme word for his last season, but a good season for Levi Onwuzurike, to be able to get him back, a young player, still in the prime of his career, injury behind him, probably going to give you at least 30, 40 pressures from the interior. That's a really good value on a player that they're going to need this year. And so it's not a flashy move. It's not one of these sexy edge rusher whatevers, but that is the kind of shrewd move that you have to make at this point in your franchise, where you can't make the big splashy moves in free agency. So to be able to get him back, and obviously I think they were probably aided by having a low market for him, a surprisingly low market for him, but still being able to get him back, I think Brad Holmes said it himself. He was doing backflips, and I don't think I was doing backflips necessarily, but I'm pretty excited to see him back here on a very, very negotiable deal.
Yeah, I'm going to say that my move that I thought was the best offseason move that the Lions made goes hand in hand with what you just said. And that was hiring Casey Rogers for a defensive coordinator that they kept from in-house and is a young guy in Kelvin Shepherd. Well, then let's give him a defensive line coach who has 30 years of coaching experience and is well-renowned and well-regarded and highly liked and thought of as one of the best defensive line coaches in football, where the Lions need also to see some growth in a young player like Tyleik Williams, continue to coach up Aiden Hutchinson, Levi Onwuzurike. We saw a little bit of it, but let's maybe see another step. Can he get something out of Broderick Martin? There's a lot, and you bring in a guy like Roy Lopez. I think that Josh Pascal. There's
young room.
There's young room. There's room for growth. There's room for opportunities. But as far as coaching staff and the way that's all shaken out, I think that getting Casey Rogers to be your defensive line coach for a young coordinator like Kelvin Shepherd is a really, really good move.
Yeah, that was a move that I didn't even think was like capable of, because I thought he was tied to Todd Bowles. Like, I thought he was tied to Tampa, tied to Todd Bowles. So I think that speaks to maybe Dan Campbell's ability to recruit coaches.
Yeah, I think that one is not giving the Lions enough credit as far as who they picked up, when it's like all about, oh no, you've lost all your coordinators. Well, you also picked up one of the best D-line coaches in the league. Like Jeremy, I'm going to go with a re-signing, and I do think there was at least a little bit of a hiccup to this offense last year at the start, trying to figure out how you were going to replace the production of Josh Reynolds. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Tim Patrick this year because the Lions went out and re-signed him. And I know I'm talking about a 31-year-old wide receiver, and the Lions may have drafted his eventual replacement if Isaac TeSlaa ends up panning out. But Jared Goff is going to go into a new offensive scheme this year down his starting center that he's relied on. And at the very least, if we've seen nothing else from Tim Patrick, that he is, along with Amon-Ra St. Brown, an incredibly effective and reliable weapon that Goff trusts. Tim Patrick and Jared Goff are on a very good, very similar page with one another. And keeping Tim Patrick around, I think, is kind of the straw that stirs the drink for a lot of this Lions offense that is studded with a lot more high-powered and a lot younger and a lot more high-talented wide receivers. But Tim Patrick being there is someone who it's all right, if it's third down, I need someone on a comeback route. I know Tim Patrick's got me. I feel like that is a good veteran presence to keep around. And again, this is not something they had last year when they lost Josh Reynolds to free agency.
Yeah, those are the kind of signings that I love in free agency because they cover you for the immediate, but they also give you the freedom in the draft, right? So the Lions didn't have to go out and get Isaac TeSlaa. They did, and they were quite aggressive in getting him, but they didn't have to because they had that position covered for this year. They could have always waited till next year if they didn't really, really like Isaac TeSlaa. And you got it, up to $4 million contract. So again, another very affordable deal.
Yeah.
Very friendly deal.
I think that speaks to their entire offseason approach, and that's why, you end up with people giving it Ds and you end up with people giving it Cs, because even a guy like Grant Stewart, where it's Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be gone until probably November. Well, we can cover ourselves with getting another special teams guy when you lose Jalen Reeves-Maybin and a guy who played a little bit of defense last year. So you plug and play a guy versus having to draft a rookie to do that, right? You get Roy Lopez. It's okay, well, you can still draft Tyleik Williams and you'll be just set because Ali McNeil is coming back from injury. So you're safeguarding yourself in a lot of ways with these veteran plug and play guys, and you don't have to overextend or you don't have to force your hand in the draft. And that's just been, who Brad Holmes has kind of established himself to be as a GM, and that's what makes him so shrewd. So,
all right, well, least favorite moves now.
It's so tough, especially when you haven't seen any of these guys' plays. But I will say I was most caught off guard by the Roy Lopez signing, because I think at that point, even at that point in free agency, I was yearning for someone along the defensive line. I think at that point they hadn't re-signed Levi Onwuzurike yet, and I was just they need a pass rush from somewhere. I'm not one of these guys screaming for an edge. And then they sign a prominent nose tackle to a 1 year, $3.5 million deal, and you're okay, but you have DJ Reader. Okay, but I know Liam's not going to play for a while, but you have other guys. I mean, you could bring back Pat O'Connor. He played some nose for you. You have a bunch of guys who could play nose. Do you really? You have. I mean, ultimately, it was saddening to hear that news because you kind of knew that was oh, they really don't believe in Broderick Martin to even be their backup nose tackle right now. And that's a significant amount to spend on a backup nose if you think you might have a young backup nose. So I don't necessarily hate it. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to fit in what the Lions are going to want to do. It's a little bit high of a price, and I think what bothers me most about it is just it means that Broderick Martin is probably not working out, or it's just an expensive way to light a fire underneath him, I suppose. But because there isn't a move that I absolutely hate, that probably qualifies most. I mean, 1B is probably the TeSlaa pick, but I don't really want to rehash all of that. You can just listen to episodes from 2 months ago and into why I wasn't the biggest fan of that draft pick. But yeah, it feels nitpicky.
I will nitpick with one, and again, it's not their option, but I think the easy answer is again Frank Ragnow departing, and it's not something they have control over at any point. It's just they're in a position with this, and I've kind of had this issue with the fact that And again, this isn't all on the Lions, and this isn't on Frank Ragnow either. It's just kind of the damned situation of all of it is that there's no real answer at center right now. You're going to have to look towards one of these young guards that you had drafted in Ratledge, Frazier, or in Mahogany. And, it seems like Ratledge is going to be the center, but like I said it at the time, I didn't know why we needed to take time away from Ratledge adjusting to being an NFL guard to become an NFL center. Now it's more of a question of like, he needs to do it, but I'm still not comfortable about it. I would have much rather liked to have seen Tate Ratledge come to the NFL as a guard, not a center, as a guard, and play a position he is much more comfortable with there.
Fair. Did you want him to move up and get Gray Zabel?
I'm not up for it. That's the
would have been great if he
I'll
fell.
channel Jeremy there, not the trading. Yeah, that's the thing. I think if Zabel had been there later in the round, later in that first round, maybe he's the pick over Tyleik Williams. But when he ended up going like 18th,
yeah, it was like
somewhere in there,
something like that. He was in the teens. Either way, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that my least favorite offseason move was a move that didn't happen, so it's kind of like inaction, but I really wanted the Lions to sign someone like Khalil Mack. I thought that would have been the kind of move that you could afford to make as the Lions, where you don't have to give up too much in the here and now, right? He got a 1-year, $18 million fully guaranteed contract. So, it's a big price tag, but it's a guy who's still playing at a very high level. I think if you bring in, again, going back to our offseason grade talk, if the Lions signed Khalil Mack in free agency, everybody would be having the Lions at the top of their power rankings. I guarantee it.
Let me ask you
Khalil
this.
Mack and Aiden Hutchinson would have been like, if you thought Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack was good, you should try.
Von Miller's still out there.
Yeah, I don't think Von Miller moves the needle the same way that Khalil Mack does.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
I think especially like the idea of like being able to do both things as far as run defense, because the Lions wouldn't, and that's part of the thing that's been most infuriating about the offseason is like expecting the Lions to act outside of themselves.
Right.
Asking the Lions to change the way that they've fundamentally approached things and gotten the franchise into a good point. Ball it up, scrap it, throw it away, start making rash decisions.
Right.
Trade draft picks for edge rushers, trade, and sign them to huge contracts after you trade them too. That's always been a recipe for success in the NFL.
Right. So many.
Chicago Bears, Khalil Mack.
All right.
Yeah.
One last one, and I'm sorry to push it along a little bit, but what's one more like an intriguing move or one that you still want to see them do in this offseason? And for Ryan, I can just kick it right back to you.
Yeah,
Go for it. It could just be, Khalil Mack.
Well, it can't be because he signed.
Yeah. He signed now. That's right.
Yeah. The way I kind of phrased this was like the most intriguing development that you're kind of like paying attention to as far as something that happened this offseason to the Lions and like where they go from here. I think I'm really interested to see where Giovanni Manu plays, because that's a guy that the Lions they made a move for in the draft last year, and there's been some shuffling along the offensive line. Obviously, that guy has to factor into the future in some way, shape, or form. So is he going to play guard? Is he going to play tackle? Where is he going to rep? Like, is he going to be on the left side? Are we all going to overreact to that and say, oh, Taylor Decker replacement? Is he going to rep on the right side? And everybody goes, oh, Penei Sewell is going to move to the left side eventually. I'm just really intrigued to see where his development is, because we didn't get anything last year, Jeremy. We saw him warming up on the field before games.
Right. Yeah. And I think that point is important to circle to when we go back to the conversation of like, well, they didn't improve this offseason. They got worse. Their method of improvement, we talked a little bit about this on last week's midweek mailbag, is their young players improving? Is their young players developing? That is how this team is going to get better from pretty much now on, because that's the only way they can. And that puts a lot of pressure on their coaching staff. when you talk about Manu, he's got a pretty good coach getting him in line, right? And Hank Fraley.
Puts a lot of pressure on your talent evaluators, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're going to have to draft well and continue to draft well and find some late round picks, mid round picks that are going to factor in. I don't want to put too much pressure on Manu because I think if his career ends up like Dan Skipper, like a long-term Dan Skipper, it's fine.
Yeah, not ideal, but it's
maybe
fine.
You overpaid a little bit for that, but like that's fine. If he is Taylor Decker's replacement, that is a huge win. That is a massive win.
No. Yeah.
My answer to the like most intriguing development is the secondary because I've kind of hinted at it a couple times in some articles, maybe some podcasts. I think this has a chance to be like a top 5 secondary in the NFL, and I don't say that lightly. Especially considering where this secondary has come from. I feel like this era of like absolutely elite corners is kind of over. Like, I don't know how many you can count, but I feel like it's less than one hand. And I mean, you look at a guy like DJ Reed, he finished 8th on PFF's list. I think that surprised a lot of people because, there were 4 or 5 guys who signed to bigger contracts than him this offseason. I don't know if he's going to be enough.
Davis?
Yeah, including Carlton Davis. I don't know if he's going to be better or worse than Carlton Davis, but I think you can expect somewhat similar level of play, I would imagine. You're hoping that you're getting Terrion Arnold's year 2 jump. You have a really good nickel in Amik, and you have 2 of the best safeties in the league. If you did upgrade your CB1 spot and you are getting a jump from Terrion Arnold, we're talking about a pretty darn good secondary right now. And for everyone that's, hemming and hawing about pass rush and edge rushers, like, if your corners can cover, if your secondary can cover, guess who has more time to get to the quarterback? All them big men.
We've talked a lot about these safeties too and how much they can take the ball away. And the hope is you get like full seasons out of everyone here, plus Reed on top of it. And it's just like, yeah. The one thing, instead of intriguing, I would like to have my one crackpot thing I would like the Lions to do.
Sure.
And it is going after a D-line guy, but it's not one of the big ones. But I would talk to the Bengals, and they're going to be like, you've tried to talk to us 30 times about Trey Hendrickson. I'm like, no, it's not about Trey Hendrickson. Let's see what we can do about Shamar Stewart.
You're crazy.
Let's see about that. No, I don't even know the legality of it. I would just like to at least say Brad Holmes will come out. It's like, hey, we at least like ask them about this because clearly like this guy is going to like not play for you.
Yeah, no, you did preface this by saying it was a crackpot idea. So
crackpot, I did.
Yeah,
I did. No, there's been a lot intriguing. I just don't have one particular other. So
you're just banking on like Cat Team Brotherhood.
I just really want some. I am still looking. See, I think when we first talked about it, I filled my head with what's one move you still wanted to see the Lions do for the rest of this offseason. Not that there's much here, and unfortunately, at this point, there isn't a ton to be done. I'm not even sure who's still sitting on the sidelines as far as free agents, but I am still of the belief Shamar Stewart's not going to play for the Bengals this year.
Well, the nice thing about the Lions is that there's nobody left in free agency that would play a role on this team.
Mm-hmm. Well, except for one that has publicly said he wants to return to the Lions.
Okay. Well, like I'm basically counting him as a Lion. Like I'm just expecting.
That's why I didn't have it as. I was like, I could have said I want Zadarius Smith still here, but like we just talked about that.
Yeah.
I also didn't mean to fire strays at your favorite still free agent Von Miller, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Us
40-year-olds have to look out for each other,
Well, we're way over time, but real quick, this was the Sheila. This is it today?
Monday
is the 5th year anniversary of Sheila Hamp as the owner of the Detroit Lions. This was pointed out. We wanted to talk a lot about and talk about how her 5 years have gone, but really that's kind of tough because I think for most NFL owners, the answer is basically just get out of everyone's way and be supportive of what they do. And really, I'm not sure how I can grade her on things like hiring because it's basically the first regime that she's had to hire, and it's worked out extremely well so far. But I think, it's a tough subject in Detroit because so many of the old heads will talk your ear off about William Clay Ford and what a quote-unquote terrible owner he was on top of everything, and the Millen Man March and being withdrawn and everything. But the best I can say about Sheila Ford Hamp is that nobody has brought up in some years about that that the Fords are bad ownership.
Sell the team.
It's working.
We've heard in a while.
It's working. It's working out. If there's any kind of quibble, it's that prices have kind of skyrocketed across the board when it comes to tickets, which I'm not, as someone whose mother wants to go to the Lions Thanksgiving game, I'm not terribly happy about that. It's like almost a 1,000% markup from what I paid 10 years ago. But as far as running the team itself, I mean, what can you really say?
Yeah, I wanted to throw this on the topic on the rundown here because Justin Rogers did a nice little 5 years in recap type of thing, and something that he wrote that I found pretty interesting that was from, I think, a one-on-one interview he had with Sheila, was the idea of transparency, which is not anything necessarily new, but in a way that was in stark difference to the previous regime. Taking on the idea that hey, we don't have to hide everything. Obviously we don't want to hand out our playbook to the other team, but we don't need to run this veil of secrecy and lockdown and everyone has to walk on eggshells and you better not leak anything to here. You better not leak. No, let's all be open and honest with each other. That way communication comes freer. And you see that top down, right? You see the way Dan Campbell talks with the media. I witness people inside that building being more open to look media in the eyes and just chat it up with the media. Whereas it was if someone sees me talking to this reporter, am I going to get in trouble? And it's hard to draw a line to say people in the building are now more comfortable. That means they're winning more football games. Obviously there's a million things that are probably more important than that, or at least as important that to actually win on the football field, but it helps. And ESPN even put out an article today talking about how teams treat their families, and they were going off the NFLPA report and talking about how the NFLPA report card has changed how some free agents view free agency. They're making decisions based on those sort of things now. And so culture matters. It's not the end all be all. You can run kind of an authoritarian type and get by if you draft the right players and hire the right coaches. But if you have the right culture, you're going to draw the best people. And the last thing I want to tie into this is the recent Brad Holmes story when he was on Field Yates' podcast. And he talked about how he almost was hired by the Lions 20 years ago. It was between the Lions and the Rams, where he's starting his NFL career. And how did he choose the Rams over the Lions? Well, he looked at the Rams and their personnel. They kept hiring from within. They treated their employees who were there as interns, and they promoted them. There was a clear culture growth opportunity in at that time St. Louis. In Detroit, there was none of that. In Detroit, it was just, let's just grab this guy. Let's just grab that guy. Let's just grab that guy.
Yeah, that's ownership.
That's ownership. And now the Lions they promote from within, right? They promote former Lions players to now defensive coordinators. It's important to them to trust players and coaches that they know and bring them along and keep them as long as they possibly can. And that makes a team and a culture better.
Yep. Neat. I was sitting here trying to think. I know I'm getting graded on my Bridges to Righteous Felons, so as I'm trying to grab one from that, Ryan, do you have anything to add on Sheila Hamp?
No, I don't.
Give him a softball. Give
me something, anything here.
Why are you asking me to do your job, Mr. Segway?
Wait, it's my job now? Well,
do the ad read?
Yes. Well, you know what? You know what helps us
To produce a podcast? Yes, it is.
Hold
your
on,
job.
I'm doing now. I see now. You don't realize it, but you tried to give me a good bridge, and now you started immediately burning it as you were building it. Because if you want to be good at your job, protein helps fuel your strength and energy at jobs. And with 2-ounce bags of jerky with 16 to 20 grams of protein and meat sticks with 8 grams, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky and Meat Stick is your job answer. Job. You don't have one? Get a job and get some Righteous Felon Craft Jerky, because if it's good enough for us, it'll be good enough for you too. Righteous Felon, based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, using locally sourced all-natural black Angus beef, prides themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. Go to righteousfelon.com, promo code POD15 at checkout, 15% off your order, whatever your order, big or small. We'll be right back on the Pride of Detroit PODcast, and it's listcast time. And once again, promo code POD15 at righteousfelon.com. We'll be back. Okay.
8.5.
You got an 8.5.
It's better than the Lions offseason.
Sorry, what?
Out of, wait, how much out of is 8.5 out of?
Who's this 8.5? Who, on what context? What's this?
Twitch.
This is we're grading
your segue.
Your segue. Come on, that's the new thing.
Right. Okay. 8.5 out of 10. Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Like I said, better than the Lions offseason.
It's way better. It's a solid B. Let me ask you something. Since you're a teacher, Ryan, if you're grading
real,
do you grade papers? Is that still a thing? Or is there like a strict rubric that you follow?
I just have Chat GPT do everything. I thought that's how the world is going. Yeah, there's rubrics, yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, as a teacher, do you feel there's a significant difference between a B- and a C, or a C- and a D+?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I mean, there's something very different about like a D that someone earned and a gentleman's D-.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I like it.
There's just a big difference, I think, in every grade.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Fair. All right, let me get through some alerts and then we'll mess around for a little bit. Not too many to get through here. 21 Kizzle, thank you for the 11 months on Twitch. Appreciate that. Yevitz, 45 months subscribed on Twitch. RC Vader, 34. Throws in a few emotes in there, which you can only access if you're a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber on Twitch. Thomas J. Hutchins, 28 months subscribed to the channel. Junk Trunk, 35, says sick of the haters. Told you it was going to be a long offseason, y'all. As soon as the Bears started making moves, I knew they were going to hog all the headlines, hog all the hype. That's why offseason doesn't matter. Le Mans Builder, 27 months. There was M in the chat. I'm not sure what that means. Le Mans Builder, you're being very cryptic. Karen, thank you for the 34 months. Says it's so effing hot. Bring on football, hoodie weather. But summer literally just got here. There's got to be like a middle ground between it's 95 and 95% humidity and 40 degrees hoodie weather. I love hoodie weather, don't get me wrong. But
no, she's 100% right. Like, I would 100% it rather be like September 28.
Sure.
And I'm wearing a hoodie and I have shorts on and I'm comfortable.
There is not much weather I would not take over 95 degrees and balmy.
I don't know. I'm starting to get a little cranky about like sub-zero temperatures. Like when it's so insanely cold out, I'm starting to get to the point where I think it's worse than the super, super hot. And I was always the opposite, right? Like as a kid, you're like, oh man, like, or no, you'd rather be out in like hot weather, like riding a bike as a kid. Like you'll go out and do everything in the summer, right?
That's true.
Like, I don't know. I I definitely did a lot of snowmobiling and like getting pulled on a sled behind a snowmobile in like way too cold of weather for way too long outside. But I guess it's just like as you get older, the extreme temperatures, right? Like the
Right.
extreme cold, the extreme hot.
What I think about
My
this in terms
ability
of
to handle
my.
cold is dead, completely dead.
Well, yeah, because you're the new Cali boy.
I know. Although, granted, I don't know. I remember when we came home from Detroit, I had a friend there being like, "Oh, make sure to moisturize your hands; they'll get really chapped up." And I'm like, "But they were fine. They were completely fine."
Yeah, I'm with. I kind of go by Thomas J. Hutchinson. You can always put on more clothing, but if you're a person that runs hot, you can't get more naked. And I am a person that runs hot, and so I think about the seasons not almost exclusively, but largely in terms of my ability to sleep at night. If it's too hot, I'm not going to be able to sleep. If it's too cold, I can work with that.
I think that's fair. Especially since
That's okay.
I am someone who likes like a weighted blanket or a comforter on top of things. I need the weight on me to sleep. And obviously cannot have that when you're shedding layers.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a food question real quick?
Do you want me to finish the alerts first?
Oh, you were in the middle of alerts. Okay.
There's 3 more to go.
Chris never interrupts alerts.
To be fair, I took us a little bit on a tangent there, but I feel like we had to talk about the weather because one, like I can see the like glow of my face of just like a very thin layer of sweat.
I thought you were self-tanning. I thought you were self-tanning.
Sorry. Downgrade, thank you for the 12 months. A full year subscribed on Twitch. Says best running back group 2016: Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, and Zach Zenner. LMAO, go Lions. It's not a bad group.
But what word did they use to describe it? Best
running back group.
It's a weird use of the word best.
They threw an LMAO in there, so not 100% serious, but
of those 3 guys, did you think Amir Abdullah was going to have the longest career by far out of any of them?
Well, yeah. I think out of those 3, I mean, maybe when they got rid of Amir, you're like, Theo Riddick could still hang around, but I don't know about that Amir Abdullah guy. Too injured.
Sounds like the Lions could have hired from within and promoted Zach Zenner to doctor, except they didn't.
Agent now. Does everything. Agent doctor.
See the Barbie of football players? Just does everything.
Malibu Zenner.
You can't. That's almost as good as Derry Sanders. I like Malibu Zenner though. That's a great nickname. All right, nice job. Continue.
Zero Slub, thank you for the 19 months, and Nick the Greek 100 bits. No, I'm not reading that one. We're not going there. All right. Our alerts are almost all on Twitch's side, which is fine. We started restreaming on YouTube more than just like finances, because in fact, like it's probably been a poor financial decision. Like we get less subs, I think, now that there's more people watching on YouTube and less people subscribe or become a member on YouTube. But there's a larger reach, and sometimes that's worth more. So we're cool with
YouTube apparently saying that I should let Ryan do a read.
Just put the pressure on him to do it. See if he can do it in the moment.
I think that this person is completely unaware. Like my job is to like talk on the radio. So I think that's why it gets kicked to me, just because like Chris knows how to whore. I won't ask Ryan to do that unless he really wants to.
Well, Ryan, do you want to?
Would that make you my pimp, Chris? Is that what's happening?
I think it makes Righteous Felon your pimp, actually.
Who's SB Nation in this example? Okay. All right. We'll more alerts. We're done.
We're done with alerts.
We're done.
You had a food question, Chris.
I did. I've been. I came up with this the other week, and I have been like pushing everyone at Fox Sports Radio to give me answers to this. I say it's for research. I say it's for. But I don't even know what kind of research I would be doing. But let me ask you guys. I say to you, we're going to go to a Chinese restaurant. And you say, okay,
For-
but I'm not
for-
going to tell
for
you
a
that
succulent Chinese meal.
for a succulent Chinese meal. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I'm not telling you what restaurant it is. You're not be able to look up the menu, but I'm telling you you've got to have one dish in mind that you are going to order. And for the sake of this, I'm talking like part of the American Chinese corpus of dishes. This isn't like super authentic. I'm saying like
Yeah.
you got to go somewhere and you've got to order before you step in the room. And what are you ordering with a good chance that it will be on the menus? For something like your fried rice or your sweet and sour chicken, your General Tso's, your Mongolian beef, stuff like that. But what's the one dish you would order? I mean, you would have in mind. Like, what's the one you go to if you know nothing else about the Chinese restaurant? You will order that dish.
Can I? The only thing I want to say is that question hinges on which dish do I think I'm going to be least disappointed in. Like, has
that's part of it.
the lowest room of variance, right?
Highest floor,
Yes.
But also knowing that like even like if nothing else, you just like that dish the most enough that like you won't be disappointed with it.
Okay, so I want to say that I thought it was chicken lo mein. I thought chicken lo mein would be impossible to not be good, and
you had bad chicken lo mein.
I had bad chicken lo mein, like outrageously bad chicken lo mein.
Wow. Call him out. No, I'm just kidding. There's no reason to do that.
Unless it's
that's
Panda
like
Express.
that's
No.
no.
We're not that kind of podcast.
But it depends. Apparently, like if you're willing to pay us, we'll.
Unless you give the Lions a D+. You can give us D+ Chinese food. Don't give us a D+.
Yeah. So Chris, to your answer or to your question, like 3 months ago, I would have said chicken lo mein, but then the rug got pulled out from underneath me. So
yeah. So I think of the answers I've had so far, and I see some in chat already of beef and broccoli, which was someone said that the other day. The first ever Kung Pao coming from YouTube. But like I think the answers I've gotten so far, I had one person say mushu, one saying lo mein, but I think it was with beef.
Yeah.
Walnut shrimp was kind of like pushing it a bit, but I'm like, all right, that's common enough. Sweet and sour chicken, I think, popped up.
Sweet and sour chicken, I think, is the safest.
Mushu pork, I think someone said mushu pork, which is a fantastic, but I'm seeing mushu really disappear from menus just because of like, you've got to have the wraps and everything.
As far as appetizers go, I think people bring up a good point about crab rangoon.
Yeah.
Crab rangoons are things.
I would say there's a pretty big like I've definitely had bad crab rangoon, but I'm also like bad crab rangoon is also still pretty good.
I am spoiled by having Jinchuans in Toledo because they have very creamy crab rangoons and probably still the best General Tso's chicken I've ever had.
Do you remember the first like American Chinese meal that you ever had?
It was at
Not
Jinchuan's, and it was their like poo poo. Is it poo
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 platter?
It's like,
Yeah.
It's but like they do it there with the rotating dish, and it's got like the fire in the middle, and they had like beef skewers, crab rangoons, egg rolls, and those like foil wrapped pieces of beef or pork or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, mine was almond chicken.
That was my go-to as a kid because it was just basically chicken fingers, right, with like gravy.
Chicken with the gravy. Yeah.
Yeah. China Cafe in Novi was my early spot, our family's early spot. I think it still exists. I don't know if it's the same name, but I don't know. My go-to orders to answer the original question, they've already been said. Is lo mein and beef and broccoli. Like those are my two.
Yeah. Okay.
That's gonna be fine.
I'm glad to at least get some overlaps on answers. Yeah. Because I know for me, like, as much as I've had really good General Tso's, I've had some really disappointing General Tso's. So I don't think that'd be the answer. I think it'd probably just be Mongolian beef for me. Because that's, as you say, that's like beef with its own gravy. But it's usually flavorful enough. But, this is an experiment I was very proud of. Just because everyone's got a slightly different answer. But it's at least stuff that I know will be on a menu. And it's not just like, it just kind of goes to show it's like, it's kind of a weird, like, as I said, I like using the word corpus because that's what it is. Like everyone knows you can get these dishes wherever you go. Egg drop soup
is good.
I'm not big on soup, but that is that's nice.
Yeah, I prefer it over wonton soup. And hot. I haven't had hot and sour in a while. It sounds like the absolute worst thing I would want to eat in this particular moment, as I feel both hot and sour. But
I don't think I've ever gotten like soups from a Chinese place. Now, getting a miso soup from a Japanese place is like
miso's great.
like essential. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Chinese and Japanese food. It's great.
Oh yeah. I just made Mongolian beef the other night, so that was really
Shout out Thai food. There's a place not too far from my house that has like the most affordable dinner that I think I can buy. It's two. I think I can plug this, right? Though, like I'm talking good about them. So, Bangkok Express in Clarkson, 2 Tom Kha Gai soups, little coconut, little chicken. 2 of those. I get 4 spring rolls, 2 for Amanda and 2 for myself. But like that's enough. Like I'm full.
Nice.
12.48
total, not each.
Total.
Nice.
Okay. I walk out of there like, $15 with a tip when I'm doing takeout.
That's pretty good.
Doesn't get much better than that. You can't even do pizza. You can't even do pizza for that anymore.
Yeah, you can't. Although, actually, I will say this: Marco's Pizza. Somehow, Marco's Pizza has besides Little Caesars, but Marco's Pizza has become like the weird, affordable option here in California, in my neck of the woods. Which is like, I did not think I would run into Marco's Pizza here in LA, but apparently 3 of them popped up in the Valley. And they're all cheaper than Domino's and Pizza Hut and Papa John's.
I don't know if I've ever had Marco's.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like right next to you guys. Oh.
I haven't either.
It's like Toledo based, so I don't.
I think there's one literally almost within walking distance of me, and I've never gone. Anyways.
Yeah.
Marcus is around, but nobody goes. Pretty good.
Maybe because they're not saying polo.
Ah, very nice.
I'll let it slide.
So, Ryan, thoughts
Reprimand
on the
me.
Ryan, how much of a asterisk am I allowed to put on the finals last night on OKC's title?
I put whatever you want on it. I won money on a bet that I placed back in July of this year when the Thunder
so you were the guy
finals.
who bet $8 million to try to win $1 million.
That's right. That's why I do this podcast, because I can bet $8 million on something at minus 700 odds
at a Reds sports book, Cincinnati Reds sports book.
We're not entirely. I mean, did Pete Rose fake his death? Make that bet?
Pete Rose doesn't have $8 million.
No.
Didn't, I should say.
No, so this was the bet though. Boise State to win the Mountain West and a team from the NBA's Northwest Division to win the NBA Finals.
That's sick. That's
You shouldn't be allowed to make that bet. That shouldn't be allowed.
Why? Because it cashed?
No, because it's insane.
Oh man. I was driving home from my annual trip that I take to Bel Air, and I was just talking with my buddies, and I was like, this Ashton Genty guy, like, I feel like he could just run things in the Mountain West.
Who are the other teams in the division?
So, it was pretty it was set up pretty well, because I had the Timberwolves, the Thunder, and the Nuggets. So like I had 3 of the 8 teams, that made the playoffs. So
I'm not saying it's an insane bet in terms of like the probabilities. I'm just saying
mashing those two things up.
2 wildly different bets from sports is insanity. Like imagine trying to make that bet before sports betting apps. You couldn't, right? Like
plane ticket. Vegas.
You think you could just requires. Like go up to a sports book in Vegas and just be like, give me these wild.
Dude, it's like you're trying to do Howard Ratner ass bets here. I mean, cross.
I disagree.
Can you tell me what the plus was?
The plus,
like the odds of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, what, like 300, 450, 800,
You like that?
580? I know you can parlay. Our good friend Bearded Blevins decided to place a $1 bet on every Detroit sports team winning their championship this upcoming season. And it's like, wins
Bad
like
bet,
400,000. Yeah, it's all a bad bet.
No. Everything else is good. Just not for the Red Wings.
No, it's not. The best you can hope for is that the Tigers somehow win the World Series and you cash out for like
It's
$50. And I don't even think it would be that high.
It's baseball. Once you get into the postseason, anything can happen.
Right, which works against the Tigers' favor because they're the best team in baseball right now.
I don't think they would be a favorite in like the play. I think as a baseball guy, I don't think if depending on what the postseason looks like, I can maybe see them maybe being a favorite over the Yankees for the AL, but like in any World Series against like the Phillies, Mets, or Dodgers, like I don't think they would be a favorite.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that sport, especially with baseball and with how good those two teams are, like they're just such big public favorites.
Which
and
two
like,
teams? Tigers
the Dodgers and the Yankees. I'm saying like the Dodgers
yeah.
and the Yankees just have so much money on them from preseason and then also all the way up to this point that like even if the Tigers finished with the best record, they probably wouldn't have the best odds to win the World Series. But I do think that after watching those NBA Finals last night, that if the Pistons make a move this offseason, who's to say they can't make the NBA Finals next year?
I think I was talking with our old friend Rob Zaglinski on how much the Halliburton injury sucked. Because I for better or worse, the comp of these Pacers was it's the Pistons from the aughts. Like, workmanship, hard defense, and no one's really a big superstar on it. And what sucks so much about Halliburton going down is it just kind of like, I think, throws a pale over them being the path through the East in that sense. And probably does open it up more for, teams like the Pistons. Yeah. I think you had said it, Ryan, like the best series from this postseason also was Pistons-Knicks.
It was. It was really fun, entertaining basketball to watch, aside from the poor officiating.
Yeah.
I think the Pistons, if they make a move that moves the needle this offseason, I would say that they have a better chance of winning the NBA title than the Lions do of winning the Super Bowl.
Wow. Hot take.
Wow.
What does give me like the bar of what that move has to be? An example.
I think you have to significantly upgrade Tobias Harris. Not saying that like Tobias Harris needs to go, but like you need a guy to come in.
Like who?
And somebody who you can count on crunch time to like score, like other than Cade. Like Cade can't just do everything.
Give me a name, Ryan.
Trey Murphy III from the New Orleans Pelicans.
TM the third?
Yes.
TM3.
TM3.
Yeah, TM3. Pistons GM, formerly of New Orleans. The New Orleans new GM is Joe Dumars. Come on, let's make it happen.
Get old two phones up on the line.
Yeah, right.
Can I ask a question to Jeremy that is NBA related, but I think this is something he could like go for. If I told you, hey, I was doing radio. We were producing a show when the Kevin Durant news broke. And it's the morning, actually, I think on the East Coast, the afternoon going into Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
And the hosts on the air bitched and moaned about this because they said this is extremely typical of the NBA to like let this news, by the way, like at a very fake, very staged Kevin Durant, like, oh, I was up, just happened to be up on this stage for this one event. Oh, didn't know. But it was very, his reaction very, he knew. But the point is that the host was making this point that this is very NBA, cutting your own legs out from under you, because on Monday only half the people out there are going to be on sports media are going to be talking about Oklahoma City or the Pacers, whoever wins Game 7, and the other half are already going to be moving on to talking about Kevin Durant going to Houston and what that means. And I just immediately started thinking to myself, could there be any universe where, like, we're talking about the morning of the Super Bowl, and like I don't know, like there's a big enough star being moved on that day?
Well,
and I guess the question is, I guess my point is that I don't think the league would let that happen at all. There's no universe where the NFL would let the Super Bowl get upstaged.
Can you like make trades in the NFL at that point?
You can't. You can agree to them. Like,
yeah.
But no one is making transactions at that point in the offseason.
But I'm
right?
trying to think of any other type of way that
like,
the NFL could have had something that might upstage it. Which is, but
I
think that's a great point, because
Aaron Rodgers news break like the day before the draft or the day of the draft.
Yeah, I remember
his
that.
timing, I think, when he went to the Jets was a little, yeah.
I don't. This is a very media thing to complain about, though. Like, right? Like who, you think an NBA general manager is gonna care? We can't announce this now. Like the finals are happening.
But I think it should be a commissioner's care that, like, hey,
why?
This is the biggest showcase of our sport. Which, by the way, we don't even have logos of the trophy on the floor.
Safety issue, Chris.
A safety issue. No, it doesn't. Like, the NFL can't go more than 10 seconds without reminding you that it is the Super Bowl, and that is part of its brand and its power, whereas the NBA Finals barely felt like the NBA Finals.
Okay.
And, like, I think that is a commissioner's question of why are you allowing trades during the middle of the finals?
But did that become official too, or was that just like a, hey, we announced we've agreed to this trade? Because as a commissioner, you can't really control that when teams agree to a trade. You can control when it's officially on the wire, but you have no control over when teams agree to do this and agents tell agents and then agents tell media. You can try, but you don't have control over that.
I don't know. Tinfoil hats in the chat, but
oh boy, here we
go. When you have the Luka Doncic news break the week that Super Bowl media starts.
Yeah.
Didn't that break at like 1 in the morning?
This is the game the NBA plays. Like, I'm just saying, Ryan, like, Stern wouldn't have allowed Kevin Durant to get traded the day of Game 7.
I mean, we're still talking about the NBA.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, like, what amount of news cycle are you saving by announcing it a day or two later? Like, one more day of relevancy?
Well, for this final, yeah. Pretty much all it gets is 1 day.
Yeah.
You could have announced it on a Monday.
That's what, okay. So if they had waited 24 hours, great. We'd talk about the Kevin Durant trade today instead.
But I think it's once again, it's like the big discourse around this final is about how good the basketball is, and yet how shit the ratings are going to be. And I know, again, inside.
This is again just like a media thing. I don't think
the
players or the fans actually care about ratings.
The fans, well, they clearly do if they're not watching. But my point is largely that when you've already got a final that's being plagued by ratings talk, why throw also a trade on top of it too?
Because you don't got control over that.
And I do think you have control over that. Commissioner's got power.
This is very much like you can pay Frank Ragnow to keep playing. It's like, you don't know that. Type argument.
I don't know. I mean, we'd be talking a lot more about the actual basketball if a guy hadn't torn his Achilles in the first quarter. Right?
Yeah, asterisks on that trophy.
I do like is it Bob Myers, the Warriors guy who was doing all the desk stuff, like next to Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A. Smith,
Mm.
and his line to Stephen A. Smith about
Not
like
gonna miss that desk.
just because you yell something doesn't make it true.
He said that to Stephen A?
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't he get out predicted by his daughter in Game 6?
Did he?
Yeah. They did the whole, like, it felt very much like, you know, the player that's under scrutiny bringing his daughter to the press conference type thing, whereas like Stephen A is getting nailed for
like
solitaire. And then who shows up on the next pregame? Oh, look, it's Wheel Out his daughter. Isn't this cute?
He's such a family man. Look he cares about family.
It feels like
and
polar
mobile
opposites
games.
of like everyone who is weeping for inside the NBA going away from TNT. And then everyone breathing a sigh of relief that ESPN will no longer get to do these NBA productions for pregame. And I don't know if you watch it, but Ryan, like halftime was just, that was rough.
I can't listen to Stephen A. Smith talk about basketball like in the heat of the moment because it's just too much.
He's going to come to Monday Night Football soon, you know that, and it's going to piss me off. And it's like I could not watch, but it's also the only football game on.
Yeah, but I enjoy watching basketball. I can step away and load the dishwasher, or I can, vacuum. I can I can go cut my lawn with a pair of scissors
at night
instead of listening to Stephen A. Smith talk about the basketball game, and then I can go back after he's done talking about it and enjoy the basketball game.
It's more the inconvenience that I am like doing those things as we get near halftime, and suddenly it's like, shit, where's the remote? Where's the mute button? I don't want to have to live with that.
I didn't think there were a lot of things that could bring me back to the Manning cast talking to Rob Lowe in the fourth quarter of a blowout. But Stephen A is probably one of those things that would.
And this is where you are going to learn real quick about the work ethic of the Manning brothers not doing a fucking Manning cast. Like, doing like one every 3 to 5 weeks or something.
I almost respect that, though. They're like, screw it. Like, we're not going to do... You want us to do 17 weeks work? Nah, absolutely not. We'll just pick and choose the quarterbacks that we like to talk about.
Listen to that, folks. Jeremy's getting paid very well to run a blog about the Detroit Lions. He doesn't care when he works.
I don't care when other people work.
He doesn't care about you.
I respect the people that have enough FU money to be like, no, I'm not going to work every week.
Kind of like that person who bet $8 million on the Thunder.
That's right. Thomas, what is your list cast? I saw you asking if you can do it now, and the answer was yes. And I see that you've now requested it, but I don't see what the request was for.
I had a list cast idea, and I just now can't remember it at all. But let's see what this.
You'd have to cash in your channel points if you wanted to use it.
Well, I've got enough for that, but I mean, again, this doesn't help if I don't remember what I'm talking about.
Favorite vacation spots in the state of Michigan.
All right, I'm out.
I'm going to say this is tough for me too. I'll answer it still. But I'm embarrassed by the amount of Michigan that I have not visited. And I have an excuse. It's kind of a lame excuse, but my excuse is I spent almost all of my 20s in LA, and I feel like, that's when you have your driver's license. That's when you can actually go places, right? You don't have school anymore. And I did all my exploration in LA rather than Michigan. And before that, my family and I just pretty much went up to the cottage we had with our cousins up in Gladwin and nowhere else. I don't hate Michigan. I want to explore more of Michigan. I went to Traverse City for the first time last year.
Nice area, right?
It's great.
Yeah.
But I've probably been to the UP once. I've been to Grand Rapids like twice. And like not much else.
half of those times you went with me.
Yeah.
I can't. My family, when it was like local vacation time, it was either to like Sandusky, Ohio, or to where my grandparents lived around like Conneaut Lake in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. So I cannot tell you a single time we've gone up to Michigan for vacationing. Some of my cousins have, but I haven't.
Give me spots. I'll go this weekend. I got nothing going on this weekend.
Go this weekend?
Travis City native, go away. Yeah, tourism is probably the worst this time of year.
Yeah, I just went up to Petoskey this weekend. That's always a nice little trip.
We did go to Grand Rapids one time as a group, but it wasn't exactly to see the sights in Grand Rapids. It was to get.
I mean, like the sights in Grand Rapids are Van Andel and $2 beers, $2 hot dogs, like.
And Founders.
And Founders.
But yeah, I mean, not for a lack of trying, but Jeremy did have an opportunity to come to Northport to my wedding, but Northport's beautiful. But like that's like all, like the Petoskey, like Charlevoix, Traverse City, like those kind of areas, like around the bay and everything like that. Like those are always like really cool spots. Because it doesn't seem like you can find that in other places in Michigan. It's pretty unique. But
some recommendations flowing in the chat. Picture Rocks, Taquamenon Falls. Taquamenon Falls? Not sure that one.
I think the second.
Well, if I try to pronounce it, everyone will bitch at me about it.
Well, that's probably because you would have said Mackinac Island.
I went to Copper Harbor for 4th of July when I was in elementary school, and that was a trip because it's like all the way at the like tippy top of the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah,
it's just a long trip. Like
right.
Even going up to Petoskey this weekend, it was 3.5 hours to get up there. And I like violated my rule for this wedding. Like if I'm ever going to be in a car for more than 3 hours, like I have to stay at least 48 hours in said place.
Yeah, it's a fair rule.
Yeah, I mean it was 6 hours of driving for like 13 hours of being someplace.
Yeah. I need that buddy that lives on a lake. Who wants to be my buddy that has a place on the lake? Anywhere, any lake.
Sure, I'll do it. Help me move to a lake.
Sault Ste. Marie?
Not that cold.
I need that summer spot. We all just play beach volleyball, horseshoes, drink some beers by the pool or the lake. What is this, Ryan?
I tried to copy an image address, but it went to Facebook. But Joe Dirt with the "won't kill you" sign.
Man, yep.
Have you ever been on it? Have you ever been on a jet ski?
Yeah, I have.
Chris, have you ever been on a jet ski?
Oh yeah.
Never been on a jet ski.
It's not that cracked out.
Start park racing. My mom has jet skis and she's single.
Wow, I mean that sounds like
what are you asking me to be your dad? Is that what you're saying?
Jeremy knows his way around a jet ski apparently, so
I'm not gonna say the first thing that just came to my mind.
Yeah.
I just want those ESPN residuals.
That's how
what ESPN? Favorite off-road vehicle? I don't think that's gonna. I think you got the wrong people for some of these list casts.
That's like far off the beaten path from car
Bike?
talk.
Feet? I'm not into. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but like I'm not really into the winter sports. I feel bad because like there's like an offshoot of my family that's like really into all that stuff, and they have a place up north, and they're like, you should come, snowmobile and hunt and stuff, and I'm just like that is not for me. To me, like snowmobiling sounds like maybe one of the most miserable activities out there. When it's super cold already, you know what I want? Going fast so that like this brittle wind is blowing at my face at like 70 miles per hour. That sounds fun.
I just don't go to cold places.
I'm
actually funny enough. I am going to one place I know where there is snow in California, but not this time of year. I'm going to be trying next month. I'm going to be taking a few days going up to Big Bear, which is like a lake. It's a lake, and like it's kind of famous because there's like a nesting pair of like bald eagles that are trying to have chicks up there or something. But it's just good hiking. But basically I could only go there because the person who has it just literally can't rent it out to me during skiing season. So has to be now.
That's cool. Yeah, you're really alienating a Michigan.
I'm saying it's not for me.
Like, I don't travel, and all your outdoor sports you do in the winter and the fall suck.
No, they're not for me. And I do want to travel. I do want to see all that Michigan has to offer because I know they have a ton. All I'm saying is invite me to your stuff.
Sometimes that doesn't always work.
Mom's not necessary, by the way.
Sam's Italian restaurant. Come eat a plate of mastacholi tomorrow when it's 94 degrees outside.
No. Absolutely.
Smell like Joe DiMaggio, and Times will bitch about it.
Paul over on YouTube, if you want to ask Lions questions, you're more than welcome to, but I would say in general during these breaks we tend to talk less about the Lions and more about everything else because we talk about Lions during the segments.
That's right.
But we're not opposed to answering some Lions questions that you may have. But generally, when we take Lions questions, it's more for the midweek mailbag, which is a separate show.
Also, they got to be like good Lions questions too. They got to be something that really stirs the juices. Not something we have talked about for it's the dead of the off season. Like we've talked, trust me, whatever you can think of, we've probably talked about it already.
Yeah.
That's right. Not necessary. He didn't rule moms out.
That's correct.
All right, let's just go to the second segment. I can't take this anymore.
Speaking of that segment too, huh? Finally hit that.
Junk Trunk, did he say momstacholi?
Jesus. All right. I'm going to go get a drink of water because I am sweating.
Oh.
Thomas J. Hutchins, you do not apologize for redeeming your list, guys. We should probably apologize for not doing it enough justice because I'm the only person who's ever been anywhere in Michigan, apparently.
It sparked a conversation for 10 minutes. It did
I live
its
in
job.
California. Yeah. Why don't you ask me a question, Ryan? I have nothing to add here.
Ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Because I always ask you a question.
If you could have a sports card of any player, who would that sports card be?
I would probably have to go ask my nephew what he would want on a sports card because I just do not collect sports cards.
Yeah, I know, but you like athletes.
I do, but I'm not sure what to do with a sports card, I guess.
Well, just kind of collect it, look at it when you want to be nostalgic. Eventually give it to somebody.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm already jumping across the point of my cousin. The problem is my nephew. The problem is my nephew is growing up in the Eagles household. So, trying to think. And he's at that age of nephew where they more like trains more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
yeah.
I'm like already thinking it's like, because I just don't know what he's going to be in that regard. Christopher Love, God, pick a player. I don't. this is I'm gonna hate saying this, but this almost sports cards almost feels like sports movies to me. Like I know other people enjoy them, but it's not something that I personally enjoy. For me, sports is about like it's live right now and spontaneous, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always have to be about like making money, though. It'd be like the
No, I'm
hobby
not.
aspect of
I
it.
despise how sports cards have been turned into just like money vehicles. Everything is now like just a loot box now. Like
They're
fucking
basically
Pokemon cards.
FTs. They're fungible tokens.
Yeah, crypto bros have kind of infiltrated the space a little bit.
Doesn't it feel like it's that way with a lot of things?
No,
Yeah.
it's like you
like
Capitalism.
like
Capitalism
tickets.
happened to a lot of things. Yeah.
that's a capitalist. No, I mean like pick his own isolate. If I'm going to answer this question, let me think. It would have to be baseball, right?
Right.
Because like those are like
It's up
the
to you.
classic ones. No, for me it would have to be a baseball card, like because like as much as I like football cards, the only cards I ever would see as a kid were like baseball cards.
Okay.
Which is funny because it's like I feel like I am like the last generation where that will be true of that at all. That baseball cards are like the top of it.
How pissed were you to get a card that just had the list? The list
Like
of
the
cards in the
checklist?
pack. Yeah.
Never got that. Never got that.
So it's kind of disappointing, right?
Yeah. It's a waste.
It's like this could have been something else.
Yeah.
When you stepped away, Jeremy, Chris said, Ryan asked me a question, and I came up with the question. If you could have a sports card, what sports card would that be? Chris proceeded
You know
to
what?
tell me that he couldn't
No.
pick a player.
No. I'm like still thinking. This is me hemming and hawing enough. Actually, you know what? I think I'd have come up with a player.
Pete Rose.
No, it is football.
Oh,
Colin Kaepernick. Let's just do
that's
the discourse.
extremely on brand.
I mean, what you want me to give the like a basic everyone wants a Barry Sanders card or something or?
Well, no, I'm not trying to say that it's anything but that. You know what? I haven't even looked at like what his like market is.
I am genuinely fascinated by that.
So
Like, because
I'm
I feel like that
intrigued now.
for that moment. Like, so you wouldn't know this, but like we just yakking on Blue Sky, and there's once again a discourse of does sports posting belong on Blue Sky? It's a distraction from whatever political shit people talk about, whatever. And I have to remind people all the time, like, sports loves getting political too. And honestly, if I'm going to think of anything, like first off, too, that Super Bowl was also like really cool. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Drew Falcon. By the way, he just picked up Chinese food.
What did you get?
It's a very important question.
We need to know that. But what were you about to say? Did you find the what the Kaepernick cards go for?
Oh, no, not really. Jeremy, do you have an answer to this question?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was not a specific player, but a card series in my brief time when I was collecting cards. It was, and I Googled this a little bit to help. I think it was a Pinnacle series where it was just hockey masks of goalies.
Yeah, I remember those.
Oh, that would
those
actually
were
be pretty good.
so awesome. And so there's not like a particular guy, but like I remember specifically there being a John Van Viesbroek one that I was mildly enamored with.
Are there any cards for that like ill-fated turn ahead the clock jerseys in Major League Baseball?
What is that? I don't know what that is.
So I'm going to show you a picture of Ken Griffey Jr., but like there was this one in 1998, there was this one like this was before alternate jerseys were cool, and baseball decided to do this promotion where like everyone was wearing these like sleeveless jerseys with like odd sci-fi themes. I think the Astros became rebranded as the Mercury Astros. Ken Griffey Jr. got to wear his hat backwards, like as he was playing and everything. and like that's what his jersey looked like. I just sent that to Jeremy and Ryan. But if you just turn forward the clock, some of these jerseys are like I'm sorry, it was the Mercury Mets. The Mercury Mets. But they look like this. They look like the most '90s ass jerseys. It looked like they decided, hey, let's do baseball, but we're gonna wear basketball jerseys while playing baseball.
It's very weird.
And I think that's my answer. So Ken Griffey Jr. as a baseball card feels like the right answer, regardless of the context. Now,
I was definitely a big Ken Griffey fan.
That's all it took.
Were you? Yeah, Ken Griffey, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, like that was like my last memory of like really loving baseball. Besides baseball itself, not just being a Tigers fan too, was the McGwire and Sosa home run. Like I still remember going over to my grandfather's place and the TV was on to ESPN because it was that summer where Sosa and McGwire were going back and forth chasing the home run records.
I remember that.
I remember that, and I wasn't a baseball fan. So that's how big of that moment was. Speaking of how big moments are.
Where it just felt... Oh. What? Going back to the show?
Yes.
Not before No Decaf sneaks in a 51-month subscription.
I got an ad, and I was like, what the fuck is this? So I want to take care of that real quick. I don't like baseball movies, and I think I can blame Kevin Costner for this. I'm not a Kevin Costner fan.
Trying to think what baseball movies I've seen, and probably I'll offend people which ones I haven't seen.
Sandlot.
What is your go-to movie for each sport? Because I think Sandlot was probably the only option I have for baseball.
Bull Durham's pretty good.
Never seen
it. I know you hate Kevin Costner, but
I've gone to a Durham Bulls game.
Major League. Angels in the Outfield.
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year.
The Natural.
I haven't seen The Natural.
Something in the Air Bud series. He had to have played baseball at some point, right?
You'd think so.
Just like bat in his
let's
mouth.
try to come up with a after.
What would happen
after the colon title?
Air Bud. Air Bud's got the ball, and Aiden Hutchinson has to like ballet step and plant him into the fucking ground. What happens?
I'm workshopping really hard right now.
Yeah, I'm like, is there anything with designated hitter that has a dog pun in it? I can't think of it.
Designated petter. I'm sure you can like go to the Wikipedia.
Ooh, seventh inning fetch is pretty good. Good job, Tara.
Fetch is pretty good.
Main article, Air Bud series. Let's see here. We've got Air Bud goal. Okay, so here we go. So
Golden receiver, aka
so
Sam
we got
Laporta.
Air Bud golden receiver, Air Bud World Pup, Air Bud seventh inning fetch.
Oh, it already exists.
There's an Air Bud. Yeah.
Did you independently come up with that, Tara? Or did you just cheat?
Or have you seen that?
Oh,
before?
that is the one. Okay.
Okay.
Well, here's what they did for the fourth sport, and this just shows you how far down the list hockey is. That we had, basketball, American football, World Pup, which is soccer, baseball, and then for the fifth Air Bud movie, Air Bud Spikes Back, volleyball.
What?
The
hold
on.
No, that doesn't even have a dog pun in it.
Yeah, it sounds a little like confrontational. It sounds like it has less to do with sports and more about like
if there's already an Air Bud volleyball movie, the second one can be called Spikes Back.
This has the subtitle of He's Got the Golden Touch.
Nope. No. I refuse. Is there? There's not a hockey one?
I was gonna say I remember
one.
the animal hockey movie might have been from the same producers, but it was called MVP, Most Valuable Primate. And it was about a monkey that played hockey.
Oh God, that's right. I remember this now. Dang, Chris attacking like hockey again. That's right.
It feels like there's an easy pun somewhere that with like sticks, right? Like hockey stick, fetching a stick. There has to be something there.
I mean, the easiest one would just be like slap pup.
Or the Stanley Pup.
Oh, there we go. All right. See, we got there.
They already had the World Pup. Like that's stolen valor.
Stolen valor from another Airbud title. All I know is that ChatGPT would be able to come up with plenty of them.
Right.
So there's just no love lost.
2 minutes for biting.
I think the question you had about what baseball movies you've seen, and I said Sandlot, it made me think about how I think the majority of like sports movies that I enjoy are the ones that are like kids movies.
Yeah.
Like Little Giants is one of my favorite football movies.
Yeah.
Little Giants is fantastic.
I'm laughing at Lord Goofa's Pavel Dachshund.
That's good.
That's really good.
One of the Fedorov.
I'm dead. No. One of the very first sports writing things I ever wrote was a terrible piece about how I hated sports movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the thing that made it especially terrible is that I kept making caveats for everything. I'm like, well, The Sandlot doesn't really count because it's a kid's movie. I'm talking about like the sports movies are actually about the sports and not like a coming of age or whatever. And we can't count Remember the Titans because that's a movie about racism.
It's a period piece.
Yeah, that's more about, and it's just like, what am I looking for then? Like, what movies like? Of course, other themes are going to be in a sports movie. There's not just going to be a movie that's just here's a sporting event.
I don't know. Draft Day did that.
Draft Day did kind of do that, and it was terrible.
And it was Kevin Costner, so you're welcome, Chris. I brought this full circle.
God.
And I think I didn't even count like comedy. Like, I can't count Slapshot. That was a comedy. It was not really seriously about sports. And I'm just like,
I can't count Hoosiers because that movie's about leadership.
I haven't seen Hoosier.
Can't count Rudy because that's about a liar.
Oh wow. Chris
Rudy was offsides. Did anyone you've seen like I'm just like thinking of like when you walk to the big house before a Michigan game, you're walking past all these like shirt vendors that have like these stupid lame like if you're going to an Ohio State game, it would say Muck Fishigan, or the Notre Dame one is always Rudy was offsides. I'm like, is that clever? What?
Are you advocating? Are you advocating for official review of encroachment? Because I hate you. That was my
also
big
like
takeaway from
I don't know. I feel like that is a dying group of like people who have watched Rudy versus people who actually care enough that if you show that like who are Notre Dame fans who care enough, you showed up with that shirt. It's like, what? Who gives a shit?
Dan, have you watched The Waterboy in the past 10 years?
Are you saying it doesn't hold up?
It's tough to watch in spots.
I would say, and I think I've said this before maybe on this podcast, but I feel like Waterboy was the transition movie for me where it was just like, oh, I don't think I like Adam Sandler much anymore.
Mine was Little Nicky.
Oh,
Little Nicky was clearly like he's on the wrong side at that point.
Oh yeah, it was like the nail in the coffin.
Do you take anything away from
Kingpin is a fantastic movie.
Kingpin might be a top 10 movie
of all time. Anything away of Adam Sandler and this whole thing with Derrick Henry he hits 2,000 yards, Adam Sandler's like, yeah, I'll put you in my next movie.
That was Dan Patrick on his behalf.
Yes, but like, yeah, Dan, like, of all things, Dan Patrick is like best buds with Adam Sandler, and
which is
like,
weird.
A weird thing, but like, yeah, that was I would know this because I work on the Dan Patrick show. Like, yeah, they put like a fucking, but like, yeah, he's like, Adam Sandler sent the video back. It's like, but why 2,000? Like,
I like how that's like all the incentive that Derrick Henry needed to rush for 2,000 yards again was, oh, I could be in an Adam Sandler movie,
right? Everyone's in an Adam Sandler movie. Like that's the thing about those movies are so like incestuous now, where it's just like let's just every one of our buds let's throw in a movie.
Yeah, that's who Adam Sandler is. It's much like Ben Stiller. It's like when he's making a movie, it's basically just his excuse to hang out with his friends.
Yeah, which again,
like get paid to do it. Like
yes, this is very much like I respect it in the Peyton Manning type of way of just like you have a ton of money.
What a hustle.
Why not just say, hey, let's all go to Hawaii and film Grown Ups 15? Like,
yeah, that's why I will never hate on Ben Stiller because he does the same damn thing.
But then also like,
does he?
Well, I mean, I don't like Ben Stiller.
Who does Ben Stiller do it with?
Tropic Thunder feels like one of those movies that was just his friends. But also that was him getting it off the schneid too.
He got a lot of people in that movie though.
I know. Again, when you have Tom Cruise as an uncredited role, a surprise role, middle of the movie showing up as like a foul-mouthed producer, you've got a lot of fucking people.
Yes. Yeah. For a movie about movies with big budgets.
Sandler, though.
Oh yeah. I'm not trying to hate on Sandler.
No.
At all. Because like in between like all these like throwaway movies that I think he wouldn't even be offended by me calling them throwaway movies. There's like one or two where it's like, this is really interesting and good. Like,
there's
the betting movie.
Few. Punch Drunk Love.
What's the betting? Why can't I think of the betting movie?
Oh, Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
That wasn't him directing it. That was like the Safdie brothers. Yeah.
Right. The basketball one where he's like an agent. That one was.
I haven't watched that one yet. That was the one. That was the Netflix one, though, right?
The problem is we're in this weird era where he's got like a contract with Netflix. Yeah. So all like the new Adam Sandler movies, which could be good, but I'm not able to watch any of them because I ain't got Netflix.
I don't have Netflix either, but I'm gonna have to get it in a month.
Yeah. For
because what? The Lions news that we didn't talk about. Quarterback. It's not really
season of quarterback.
The news is just that there's a trailer.
I think I'm good.
He wasn't in the first season though.
Yeah.
No, why they threw Kirk Cousins in there for a second time? That's a legitimate question. Although, to be fair, pretty interesting year for him.
Yeah, I think that should. I think including Kirk Cousins in this season of quarterback. If you're the Falcons quarterback this year, you absolutely do not want to agree on being a part of the quarterback series because the first year it was Marcus Mariota. That didn't end up well.
That's true. I forgot that Marcus Mariota was a Falcon at that point.
Yeah.
Right? He was?
He was.
I do need to ask again since it's getting later though. Segment 2.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm ready.
I just realized we're over an hour doing this, even though we went like 40 minutes in the first segment as well.
No, that doesn't sound like us.
I'll let you get that in place first.
Good to go.
Pride of Detroit PODcast. I think, yes, the listcast music is here. It means it is time to list, and we have a lot more to do this time around. We are doing NFC North and the running back rankings, which means it's not just the top running backs, but also looking at guys across there. I have a feeling this is going to be less of a list cast and more just talking about some of the state of these guys and compare, contrast. But because I don't know. I don't have a comprehensive ranking all the way down through like 12 different guys, to be absolutely fair.
No, this should be units. This like we're ranking the 4 teams,
Sure.
not
By
16
units.
different running backs.
Well, I do want to get into the individualness of this, because like we did have an article out today as we started doing our roster preview about like Jahmyr Gibbs not just being the best back in the NFC North, but really gunning for, a position to be potentially the best running back in the NFL right now.
In order to do that, you have to find a better incentive than Adam Sandler and Derrick Henry.
That's right. 2,000 yards to get into a Adam Sandler movie. Who would, maybe you got to go for like, I don't know, 3,000 and you get into like what, a Spielberg?
Something with Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
How about a Spike Lee flick?
Spike Lee joint?
Do that.
I think that's on the table for Jahmyr Gibbs though this year. I think
3,000?
becoming the best running back in the NFL is definitely on the table for Jahmyr Gibbs this season. Which kind of makes Detroit the number one cast of running backs in the NFC North.
They are, for sure. Like I'm willing to hear counter arguments, but I think they're pretty clearly the best. I would say, best running back duo in football, and I don't think you'd get much pushback across the NFL with that. I don't think Gibbs is going to make that push for RB1 this year, just by nature of being in a running back by committee room. As much as I think we all think he's going to get a bigger piece of the pie, he's not going to get a Saquon Barkley-sized piece of the pie. He's not going to get a Derrick Henry-sized piece of the pie. I mean, you're talking about 250 rushes for Jahmyr Gibbs last year, 345 for Saquon Barkley. Almost 100 more. He's not going to catch that. He just isn't.
But I don't think he needs to be RB1. I don't think it needs to be in volume. It needs to be what he does with the touches he gets. And the argument in that sense is like, watch when Jahmyr Gibbs takes the ball and the explosive, like if he can keep ratcheting up the explosive play ability for the Detroit Lions offense and continue to use his shiftiness to get loose, like I can see the argument for him. Like, yeah, you will always kind of like, there will always be the kerfuffle when it comes to like, where he could lose out on it if he's not getting those same touches near a goal line, and if he's not completing on a touchdowns. Like, yeah, sure, that plus the amount of touches will not endure him to, say, the fantasy crowd. But I think when you're making highlight reel runs the way he does, and if you can do it regularly throughout, 17 games, I think there is a good case to be made for that.
Who had the biggest highlight run last year?
What, David Montgomery putting Devin Witherspoon into the ground?
No. It was a good one. But it's not the one that literally is in Madden now.
All right. I'm not going to boil it down to like a single run. Here's the thing. Derrick Henry, like, rushed for nearly 2,000 yards last year. So, like, he's obviously the guy I think that he has to supplant. Like, for as great as Saquon Barkley was, and he rushed for 2,000 yards, like, I want to see it again. But with Jahmyr Gibbs, like you talk about, I mean, if you go for scores, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jahmyr Gibbs was tied with Derrick Henry for 16 touchdowns. He still ran at like 5.6 a clip. And I think the thing that you could help, or the thing that you could see Jahmyr Gibbs do this season that would put him over the top with those two guys, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, those guys are running backs, right? Like in like a truer sense, in like a more like traditional sense. I think you could see if Jahmyr Gibbs and his production in the receiving game takes off, and he can have more yards than them from scrimmage, like that kind of standpoint.
Sure.
Like if he can make that happen, then I think that he can become RB1. And I think that's on the table.
That's, I think, his most realistic path to being RB1 is he has to expand himself as a receiver. And I think he was talking to Eric Woodyard over the weekend because he was doing his own, kids camp thing. And he said that, that 1,000 goal is still something he thinks about. I don't know how realistic it is. In his best season, he had how many yards? Last year was 517. Played all 17 games. That would be a pretty significant jump. But we teased it last year. The Lions were really thinking about lining him up more outside and being a true receiver. Those plans never really got off the ground. Maybe it does this year. And maybe that's the way they get him and Montgomery on the field more. And maybe that's what they end up doing. I question it with the amount of other receiving threats that they have on this team. But but
it is also John Morton, and we know how much in the past he's like to have thrown the ball too.
Sure.
So but yeah, I see your point as far as just how many options they really have. But I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, this team's identity, no matter how many receiving options they have, is running the ball.
Right.
So I've just got to think, and we know what it is with Jahmyr Gibbs when he's running behind someone like Penei Sewell too, just how much that is opened up and where he can go.
Yeah.
I think that's impossible to ignore that.
Third last year in yards from scrimmage, 1,929, and 20 all-purpose touchdowns, which was the most in the NFL. So,
yeah,
the guy who was number one was Barkley at 2,283. I think it's within. I think it's within reach. Yeah, I think it's within reach.
I do also want to point out that it's pretty impressive that Barkley and Henry, 5'8" and 5'9" yards per carry, both more than Jahmyr Gibbs, with 70 to 100 more carries. Keeping that pace on that many more rushes is pretty darn impressive.
I mean, Derrick Henry having the longest run out of all of those guys is maybe the most impressive thing.
Right. Yes.
87 yards.
Wow.
So I guess my question is, that's number one with a bullet in the NFC North. Is there anyone who could even get even close to Gibbs right now on any other team?
No. I think
you're going to say Aaron Jones?
I would say the 1-2 punch of Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason is the poor man's version of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I do like the Jordan Mason move for the Vikings. I think Aaron Jones has proven to be a guy that you can't completely trust to stay healthy. And when Tyson Chandler was out there for them last year, it was a huge step down. And Jordan Mason was very good in San Francisco. And you always have to be all right, well, what happens when the Shanahan pixie dust isn't there? But you got some Kevin O'Connell pixie dust over in Minnesota, right? It's not that much of a difference in terms of scheme. He's been a very, very productive player. I think averaging over 5 yards a carry every year in San Francisco. And so I think that was maybe one of the most underrated moves in the entire NFC, I think. NFC North, I should say, this offseason, and gives them the 1-2 punch that I think you kind of need unless you have a Derrick Henry on your team. And, I don't need to profess my admiration for Aaron Jones any more than I already have. I think he's a tremendous player. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are clearly a step above those two, but Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason is a very good knockoff version.
I'm not sure I really buy into the Jordan Mason stuff so much, just on watching what, even when there were the moments where even when Christian McCaffrey was still a ways away from coming back, there were just some clunker stuff from them as the 49ers continued to break down. I don't know. I would have to see it, I guess. And I'm not fully compelled on the Vikings O-line and all this stuff versus what he had at San Francisco. And I just do not that the Kevin O'Connell offense, if I'm going to say anything about it, I've never really seen it as a big ground and pound offense, Ryan. It's hard for me to buy into it.
I think the thing that's I think the thing that's most difficult with seeing how these 49ers running backs will translate in other places is I just can't keep track of all of them.
Yeah, there have been a lot of them. Yes.
There's been a lot of necessary McCaffrey replacements.
I feel like Mason got all the headlines from the one game he had.
He rushed for more yards than David Montgomery last year. And for one more yard per carry. 5.2 versus 4.2.
Yeah, and they weren't exactly throwing the football a lot in San Francisco last year either.
But they were losing a lot.
There was what was his name? Was it Jeff Wilson? Like a couple years ago,
Yeah.
there was Jeff Wilson, there was Elijah Mitchell. There's just so many of those running backs where that became the joke, right? That became the meme was running backs don't matter, but they go and get McCaffrey. Why?
Right.
And then lo and behold, it takes them to a Super Bowl. But
it's almost like the Denver Broncos in the 90s with all those guys that they just ran through that like had 2-3 year spurts in Denver and then nowhere else.
Reuben Drones.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a particular take about the Bears, and I do not think DeAndre Swift is going to be higher up above Roschon Johnson by the end of the year.
Oh. Okay, go on.
I know Swift has some familiarity with Ben Johnson. It's just, I don't know. We keep doing this with DeAndre Swift, where it's like, yeah, the talent is there, everyone talks about it, but then like it just never really comes together too much. You'll have a couple games where it's like really good and really together, and then he'll continue to do the things where it's like, all right, well, you needed 3 yards, but you only got 2. And I think as he gets older, the explosive plays really starts to go down. But Roschon Johnson, forgive me if I'm like trying to look this up on the fly too. Like, I know he was a 4th round pick for them a couple years ago, and maybe this changes under Ben Johnson, but it always felt like from talking with people who I know talking about the Bears was like, it does seem to like angle towards the younger running back. It just hasn't, and like,
I think in the pre-draft process, a lot of the talk around Roschon Johnson was not a ton of experience, didn't have to really shoulder the load because he played alongside Bijan Robinson. So you're getting a guy who still has a lot of tread on the tires.
Right. And you had at least seen, I know at Texas, he had like, what, a 52-yard run. There were the flashes enough where it's like, all right, well, maybe as this guy gets his sea legs about him in the NFL, like that freshness on everything too will be the one that like pans out for him. So I guess our question is like, it's a double whammy of, is Roschon developing into that NFL running back versus how many more years are we going to get the top level of DeAndre Swift, who is now in the other side of his was like, I think going to be 26, 27 for the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like still relatively young, just like can't stay healthy ever in an entire season. And that's something that, I don't know, for better or for worse, like I don't think it's...
You started 17 games last year.
It's interesting to see how people view DeAndre Swift outside of Detroit.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I saw it, but it's funny as I watch it happen because, like, you say that's how they view it outside of Detroit, but I also saw the same evolution, Ryan, happen when he was in Philadelphia, where, like, by the end, Philadelphia fans are kind of tired of the DeAndre Swift train. And I think we got a little bit of that in Chicago, but I think Chicago's also willing to run it back for a new year with a new coach and a new system with DeAndre Swift. But I'm just curious if it starts to really wear thin again. I think, again, Roschon feels like the one who would be rising. And he has the youth and the tread to be the riser.
I have Chicago last by a considerable margin on my list. And it's not a slight at DeAndre Swift because I think he's answered a lot of like the challenges that were brought to him by Detroit to be a little bit more physical in the way he runs, to be a little bit more durable. Like I said, he played all 17 games last year. But the one thing that I don't think he can escape is the vision. The vision has not improved his entire career, and it holds him back a significant portion. Now, I do think the offensive line is going to be better in Chicago. I think it has a chance to make his stats improve, but he finished 18th in yards last year, rushing yards, 959. But among the top 25 rushers in the league, he had by far the worst yards per carry at 3.8. He's not making the most of those opportunities. Roschon Johnson has been worse. He's young. I think there's more room to grow. I don't think he's going to surpass them.
But they just weren't giving him a lot of opportunities at all last year either.
Right. Well, what does that say about him now?
Well, I mean, this is always the double whammy. What's that say about him versus what does that say about Chicago's the coaching staff, which we know what last year's coaching staff was for them.
I think
go ahead.
I was just gonna say the surprising thing to me is that they didn't draft one earlier. Like, I think we were all a little bit scared of Janty going there. It made a lot of sense. Obviously he went earlier than they picked, right? So they didn't get the opportunity, and maybe it was just a thing where need didn't match up with the board and they weren't going to push it. But they wait all the way until the 7th round to get their guy Kyle Monangai. I don't think he's going to necessarily challenge for one of the top 2 spots. So I think maybe that's something that the Bears have put on the back burner a little bit. Like, hey, this was just didn't turn out to be the offseason to improve the running back room.
That always felt weird too, that they're banking on Genty falling to them, where it's like the Raiders made it clear as sunlight that they were going to take him at 6. And you're telling me that, like, well, I guess I'll die. Guess it's, well,
no, it was if you're the Bears, you trade up into the top 5? No, that doesn't seem like a smart move for where their franchise was at.
I had a lot of high stock in Amari and Hampton. But, like, again, didn't pull the trigger at that. And Hampton, I think, ended up going, 22nd to the Chargers. So, like, they passed on him. So, but I'm just saying it's very odd that they, like, I'm trying to agree with that. It's odd that they waited all the way to the 7th round before addressing this. And, like, I get that there was a bit of a fall off after Genty, but I think there was even more of a fall off after Hampton.
I think the national perception of DeAndre Swift is this super athletic guy who's capable of highlight reel plays that he's pulled off from time to time. But to your point, Jeremy, it's the vision that's always held him back. So while you do see those super flashy highlight reel plays, the things that don't get put on highlight reels and that get put on low light reels, and you remember frustrating you as a fan, is when, you kind of laugh and scoff when Greg Rosenthal says, oh, hey, there's not much of a difference between DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams and Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery.
Still paying dividends.
The tricky part with talking about the Bears, though, too, is, like it or not, like, Caleb Williams is going to be part of their rushing attack, right? Like, we can't include him in this conversation because we're ranking the running backs, but his appearance in the offense is going to probably lift the running back room, right? It's probably going to help DeAndre Swift out a little bit, that he's going to have a quarterback that he can run an option with.
That was the other point I wanted to make, though, is one of the biggest tasks that Ben Johnson has is getting Caleb Williams in a spot where he is making the right decisions. I mean, there was nothing more evident than Thanksgiving last year, right? And it's like they need a coaching staff that can support a quarterback and have him make the right throws at the right time and on time. I think a guy like DeAndre Swift is useful in that sense, because if it's, hey, if my internal clock hits and something isn't available, I need to check down to my running back. There are a lot worse options to check down to and be a check down Charlie, which was what Jared Goff was in 2021 because he didn't have much of a receiving game. Go check DeAndre Swift's stats in 2021. He had a pretty good year by numbers, right? So that could be useful for a guy like Caleb Williams, who might become a little bit of a check down Charlie as Ben Johnson gets him up to speed.
I don't think Caleb Williams is going to play. I don't know. We'll have to see what Ben Johnson cooks up. I don't think he's going to be really looking to Caleb Williams to rush in the sense of like, this is Jaden Daniels now. Like when a play breaks down, I think you expect Caleb to, tuck it and run and try to take advantage of it. But he's always kind of been more of a scrambler, if nothing else. Like he wants to be operating. He wants to be operating from the pocket. But he's definitely not like this option first quarterback that I think that has become trendy to draft guys like Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels.
But he's also he's talked about his mobility so much this offseason that it's like, He's going to lean into it a little bit. You're right that it's not going to be like...
It's hard for me because when I hear Caleb Williams' mobility, I'm thinking mobility in the sense of Patrick Mahomes is mobile.
Right.
He's not a rushing quarterback.
Right. And yeah, some of that conversation that Ben Johnson's talking about, he's talking about extending the play. He's not talking about using him as a read option. He's not talking about, QB draws and things like that. But if there's one thing we know about... Right. But if there's one thing we know about Ben Johnson is if you give him a weapon that has certain attributes, he's going to try to utilize that in any way he possibly can.
Yeah. We need to talk about the Packers, though.
Do we? Sure. Why not?
I just hate that sentence.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Throw up in my mouth a little bit. So it is still headlined by Josh Jacobs. And still, do you want to start with Josh Jacobs, or do you want to start with their third rounder they picked up in Marshawn Lloyd?
No, I want to talk about Josh Jacobs.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm wondering when the Josh Jacobs thing is going to break down. And the reason I ask that question, he has over 1,600 carries in 6 years.
That's a lot.
I mean, he had 340 carries in 2022. Last year with the Packers was his second season going north of 300 carries. But I mean, like you add up the receptions, it's 233. You're
forgetting one part of this. You got to add in.
Go ahead.
I was sorry, but real quick, you got to add into this calculus too. He did play at Alabama, very famous for putting a lot of wear on the treads as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't discredit that from Derrick Henry, but Josh Jacobs is 5'10", 223 pounds. So like, that's the difference, right? Is you don't have a guy who's necessarily like freakishly big and can withstand that kind of abuse. But yeah, I mean, that's my point. Is I think you have a guy who has nearly 2,000 touches in his 6-year career. Like, how much longer is that going to be sustainable? I'm not saying it's going to fall off a cliff this year. I'm just saying it's something to consider out loud.
Yeah, and I mean, his stats don't touch Derrick Henry's, right? He's career 4.3 yards per carry guy. He's 4.4 last year. Good year for him last year, right? I think he's a good back. He finished with top 10-ish. He was 6. Oh, that's in carries. 6 in yards too.
11th in offensive player of the year voting.
That's a choice by the voters. I think if we're talking about like singular backs, he's in the conversation of top 2. Like him and Aaron Jones are probably 1A, 1 or 2A, 2B, whatever you want to order you want to put them in. I'd probably give it to Aaron Jones just because of his ability to catch the football a little bit more. Not that Josh Jacobs can't do it. I mean, he caught how many balls last year? 36. So it's capable of it. But yeah, you're right. Like he's put himself through a lot. He's never been like a truly explosive back, but he brings a physicality to the game that, I think we always kind of joked about the Packers, how like that wasn't their game defensively or offensively, right? They weren't able to grind them out games because they had this gunslinger at quarterback, whether it was Favre or Rodgers or Jordan Love. Josh Jacobs gives them a different mentality that I think they've been missing. The problem is, I don't know who else is in that room at all. Because the one guy that they had last year, Marshawn Lloyd, was injured most of last year. He was injured most of his college career. Who is he? I don't know.
And 6 carries last year.
It's clear they want to run this offense through there, because I'm looking at last year and like I think they had the line by comparison, the Lions I think were almost evenly. I think the Lions had like only 20 more passing attempts than rushing attempts, whereas the Packers had 479 attempts at passing and 526 at rushing. So they are leaning a little more ground heavy, but like as you say, like once you're past Josh Jacobs, it's a lot of questions as to, who can really do this. And there's legitimate questions on, can Josh Jacobs keep carrying a massive workload for 17 games as well? Like I'm sure they would like to say they'd like to lean on their run game, but like I don't know. I think of the Packers, I just keep thinking them going through Jordan Love first. I
mean, if they want an efficient runner, they have one in the quarterback room. So
okay.
You're somehow going to manage to bring him up every week, and I'm here for it.
6.9 yards per carry last year.
Way better than Marshawn Lloyd's 2.5.
On 20 attempts. Efficiency.
So my rankings, and it felt pretty easy to me, were Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. Do either of you deviate from that list?
I'm really trying to game out the Bears this year. Just because I know we know a healthy run game is always going to be there for a Ben Johnson offense. But I think talent-wise, and we should be doing this on, talent-wise, absolutely. I have my questions about Jordan Mason, but I think Aaron Jones is definitely the second best running back in this division. So yeah, I have no quibbles.
I agree with your rankings, Jeremy. It goes Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. But I think it's more interesting to think about it from a tier standpoint because I think Jahmyr Gibbs is in the top tier and he's by himself.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the next tier is Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. I think David Montgomery is in that tier.
Interesting.
I was going to say before we were done with this, we should talk about where David Montgomery backs up against all this. But yeah, you've just uncorked it. So, but you're saying he's up there with these other guys who are RB1s.
I think he's in that second tier. I don't think the Bears have a single running back in the first or second tier. So I think there's a very clear drop off. And I think in that third tier, I would put Jordan Mason in the same tier as DeAndre Swift.
That's fair. I might. It feels insulting to David Montgomery, but I do view him and Jordan Mason kind of on the same tier.
That is insulting, actually.
You hate David Montgomery. Why?
I don't. No, I absolutely don't.
But you do. I think you do.
are way overvaluing Jordan Mason.
I think he's a very and I think this is why the Vikings are so easily RB2 in this thing is because of RB2. I don't believe in any other RB2 in this division other than David Montgomery and Jordan Mason. Roschon Johnson, Marshawn Lloyd, they're you want to talk about tiers. It's David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, and then 3 tiers, and then all the other RB2s in this division.
Yeah, it does fall off. I wonder if any of would Sione Vaki be RB2 in Green Bay? He might be.
I think he might be. He might be RB2 in Chicago.
Would Craig Reynolds be RB2 in Chicago?
I think Sione Vaki could be the starting running back of the Chicago Bears.
Stop it. Stop it.
Let's call up Ben Johnson right now. See if we can make that trade.
No deal.
And granted, the Lions running back room has been around for a while. Craig Reynolds has been around for a while. Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're established. We know they work on this offense. We know we work on this team. So it's a little bit easier to rank them above everyone else. But even when you're just when you're talking about ceilings and stuff, it really feels like the Lions are in a much better spot than everyone else in this division. And it's important to have depth at the running back position, right? That is a position that gets beat the hell up. And the Lions were pretty lucky last year to only have David Montgomery miss 3 games at the end of last year. What are the chances DeAndre Swift lasts the entire season? What are the chances Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs?
It's funny you say too on again, and I know it's not a terribly huge difference, but we're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, who is remind me of his age again. He's
24, 25. Can't be older than that.
He's definitely under 25, I think, because he was on that list of.
Yeah. What you say he's already established, and I look at Aaron Jones, who is I could say, he's probably established there. He's also 30.
Right.
Jahmyr Gibbs is 23 years old, and he just turned 23.
So that's what I thought. I thought he was a lot younger than that. That's why I was saying Jahmyr Gibbs is 23 versus Jacobs, who's 27, Jones, who's 30, and Swift, who's 26. Yeah.
I mean, man, to bring this back to Air Bud, 27 in running back years is pretty old.
You could make an argument Aaron Jones is going to fall off this year. If he did literally just have a career year last year, his highest career rushing yards, but
he's actually going to be 31 before the season's over. His birthday is in December.
Jeremy could have any sports card. It would be an Aaron
Stop
Jones
it.
card.
Stop
Look,
it.
hey, this is like all off air stuff.
This is
Infiltrating into the podcast.
If you listen to us over the air only in terms of the audio, you're missing out on all these great references that Ryan is making.
Ryan really wants me
marketing.
to release a Scraps episode this week.
I wouldn't mind that.
This is, but I think this is the important part of why we're doing this list cast, particularly when we're going past just the starter, though, is because when you just compare starters of every team, like, it's easier to see, like, oh yeah, these teams are all really close. The Lions aren't that much better than everyone else in the division. But when you look at the depth, I think the Lions are so far and ahead of this team, and that's going to be something that we notice down the line when we go to wide receivers and tight ends and offensive linemen. They're so deep, and you need that because guys are going to get injured. And I think the Lions are best. We saw it last year. They were best served. How many other teams would have survived as long as the Lions did with the injuries that they had? And they're just as deep, if not as deep. If not deeper in a lot of these positions next year. And this is what I think Listcast is for.
Yeah, it's going real deep.
It was a good pitch.
It's going. You know what? I can't even say what I want to say. It's fine.
Football's deep. That's what you're going to say.
Football's deep. So we got, there is no mailbag this week, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Jeremy,
it is
last
Pride Detroit direct exclusive this week because it's the last week of the month.
That's right. Anything else we got to announce?
We'll probably also have a first bite, but I'm still working on the details of that as well. If you haven't listened, we just recorded a really good episode of First Bite with a Georgia writer talking about both Lions 7th round picks, Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett. And if you were even a little bit of a Dan Jackson fan, you're going to be a big Dan Jackson fan if you listen to that. So if you want access to that, prideofdetroit.com/subscribe.
All right. And I think that's all we got. Anything from you, Ryan?
Shout out Anthony Dasher.
That's a Georgia writer. Good memory.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll get out of here. For myself, Chris Perfett, for Jeremy Reisman, for Ryan Matthews, we will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Okay. It's running out of oxygen there.
Oh, boy. All right.
What do you like, Karen? That I said I like Jordan Mason almost as much as Dave Montgomery?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to like that. But
Probably
you
not.
said it, so.
You did.
Big Kyle Shanahan guy.
Jordan's manager guy.
Manager guy.
I don't know what. I don't remember.
He was like a.
He wasn't like a bodyguard, right?
He was like a stadium worker.
I love David Montgomery. I love him on the field. I love him off the field. I do think he's underappreciated still.
Telling us how much you love David Montgomery definitely sells us on how much you love David Montgomery.
It's very funny.
Babe, I love you so much.
I thought it was
it's more
very
Jordan
funny
Mason
to
thing.
watch the evolution last year. Once again, being around some very knee-jerk people. From the start of the year, it's like, how do you even play Jahmyr Gibbs? You've got to go with David Montgomery, who's the hot hand all the time. David Montgomery should be the RB1 and getting all the ball, all the touches. To the end of the year, you don't even have to run out David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs has got to be running every down. And it's like, you still don't get what's going on here, do you?
No, I Jeremy, I agree. I understand. This is more of a, hey, be on the lookout for Jeremy Mason because he's solid.
Yeah, that's right.
You called him Jeremy Mason.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay.
No, I think we just figured
Jordan
out the
Mason.
connection to Jeremy, though. It's the J.
That's right.
Yeah, I get it. You're more so sold on Jordan Mason and being a part of a Vikings team that has like a solid offensive line, right? Like that's the other key component that like you can't have a running back independent of their offensive line. So I mean that's kind of why you got to see the Bears thing happen before it actually happens, right? Like they made upgrades to the offensive line, but like I need to see it all in action. Like
exactly.
We also know they have a quarterback now who specializes in strong handoffs.
Malik Willis better play this year. I want to see. I want. I don't want Jordan Love to get hurt. I would love him to get suspended for Adderall for just a couple of games, just so that we can get 2 Malik Willis games. That's all I want for Christmas.
Who would those 2 Malik Willis games be against? If you are rooting for
not
Malik
against
Willis,
the Lions, absolutely not. The most difficult spot I could ever be in.
Should Malik Willis just like become the next Josh Dobbs, where like he's traded wherever he's needed?
How dare you compare them? Because they're not comparable. Malik Willis is eons better than Joshua Dobbs.
You know what, though? The way here's the thing I
hate the reputation Joshua Dobbs has.
I'm about to make this worse. Hold on. I'm about to make this worse because I feel like watching Ryan talking at Malik Willis, if he was somehow a Packers fan, I know he'd be calling in saying you've got to start him in the same way that we used to get people calling in about Kellen Moore every time Stafford had a bad game.
Oh my God, you are a Boise State fan.
I don't know if he'll be as good of a coach, but I guess we'll find that out.
All he's done is win. Wherever he's gone, you've got to give him a chance.
All he's done. Here are the 2 games that I want Jordan Love to be suspended for Adderall for.
I think I have an idea of these games. Let me see. What you got?
They're non-consecutive, so it doesn't exactly translate. So maybe he gets suspended once and then gets suspended again when he doesn't learn his lesson. I want Thursday, September 11th versus the Washington Commanders and Malik Willis to win versus Jaden Daniels. That would be Christmas in September for me.
Very realistic.
I think the other one. I think I would want the other one to be Sunday, October 26th at Pittsburgh.
I was going
Sunday
to
night
say
football
I had
versus Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
For Aaron Rodgers to look negative athletic and Malik Willis to look like the most athletic quarterback you've ever seen in your entire life.
By the end of the night, we'll be asking whether Malik Willis is the best quarterback in Packers history.
I had gotten Pittsburgh. I was saying it's either like Arizona, Pittsburgh, or Pittsburgh, Carolina. But like hinging around that, I thought you were going to go.
I wouldn't mind Monday night against the Philadelphia Eagles and to take down the Super Bowl champions and Jalen Hurts. Like, that'd be nice. The only game I would absolutely not want him to play is Week 17 versus the Baltimore Ravens because he would lose and he would look bad.
These are not...
No NFC team can beat Lamar.
I'm realizing, like, there's not a great number of defenses on the Packers' schedule that they are playing.
No NFC team has beat Lamar Jackson, but...
I think 2 have, but... Oh, wow.
Has Lamar Jackson ever beat Malik Willis?
I can't answer that question
You can't
with
answer
full
that
knowledge.
question?
Like, probably not.
Baltimore did lose to Philadelphia last year.
Well, oh yeah, so twice.
That was
right?
their
What you
second
said, Jeremy.
time, yeah.
I'm looking at Malik Willis's game log, so you guys talk amongst yourselves.
Sure.
Oh
yeah,
hey,
this is going to take a long time, huh?
I have one of the other times Baltimore lost to an NFC team, and I really want to crow about it because it's very funny. Can you guess?
No, I have no idea. It happened a while ago.
2022. They lost to the Giants.
Malik Willis lost to the Baltimore Ravens in Week 6 of 2023.
He started?
I don't think he started this game. I'm going to double check because I just saw his numbers. Who started this game? Ryan Tannehill started that game. Malik Willis came in. He was 4 of 5 for 74 yards passing.
What else could you want from him?
Well, to not get sacked 4 times for 30 yards.
Okay.
That was the trade-off. They only lost 24-16, though. So, like, You know what? I'm changing my answer.
Jared
Malik's revenge.
Jared Goff got smoked by the Ravens. Who's the better quarterback?
Makes you think. Inquisitive minds will want to know.
The question is, when did Malik come in that game? And how many scoring drives did he lead them to?
I'll look at the play-by-play. Malik Willis.
Looks like fourth quarter.
I mean, can you talk about pressure?
And he led
them
to three
What was
points.
the score of the game? They were down 21-13.
It was 18-13 at the start of the fourth. But mostly 21. Actually, it was 21-13 when he took over for the first time.
Yeah, so down 21-13, down 24-13.
It was only 3-3 after he came in. Didn't lose ground.
Dude, if you look at that last drive in that game, it is a nightmare. He was sacked 4 times, all 4 times.
All 4 of his sacks came on the last drive of the game.
The last drive of the game
ended in a
field goal. For a field goal
with 41 seconds left.
And
down
used
11.
They used all their timeouts. It was the surrender Cobra field goal.
So what was the down and distance they decided to punt or kick the field goal on?
This has been way too much.
On 3rd and 20, they kicked the field goal on 3rd down because it was
Cowards.
3rd and 20. They're like, we're not scoring a touchdown on this drive.
Hey, Malik Willis got sacked 5 times on that drive, but one of them there was defensive holding.
Love it. I love it. That is more Malik Willis talk than there's been on any podcast in the past 2 years.
Probably more than Packers podcasts.
Any. Titans, Packers.
Malik Willis' own podcast hasn't talked about him like this.
Liberty.
Well, those people are talking about other things, and they are not good things that we have to hear about.
All right. Well, I'm done talking about Malik Willis, so I'm done talking to you guys.
It's time to go.
By the way, I never noticed there's no message on your whiteboard this time around.
It's truly the off season.
I've kind of, it's summer, so I don't really do that.
Well, you had like all the yearbook stuff up there for a while, so we didn't have messages from you, and now we didn't have the Woody Page messages from you for a while, but now it's just completely blank, which is just not a state I usually see your whiteboard in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that we actually entered all the stuff that was up there for yearbook into a computer somewhere, because I just walked in here and they're in the midst of like deep cleaning all the rooms, so they just erased everything on my whiteboard. So yeah, I'm really glad that we put that down somewhere before they did that. But
wait, did they actually? You're saying it in a sarcastic, dry tone.
I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
No, I was going to say, because if they didn't, we could always just go back through the POD streams and just get that information off of your webcam.
Like we're trying to scrub an NFL draft war room. Like, what does their board say?
That's what we should do next. Like, you draw something up there, but we somehow blur it out just to make people think that there's something important up there.
Yeah, it's going to be the tiers of NFL running backs, and David Montgomery is going to be higher than Jordan Mason.
Said they're the same tier, right? Not that he's above him.
I would rather have David Montgomery than Aaron Jones.
I don't agree with you.
You're not allowed to agree with me. It's off brand.
Do we disagree that often?
Not really. We just kind of mumble our way around it.
According to the podcast reviews, we just carry water for the team.
That's
and
right.
Well, yes, men.
It's interesting to me how that narrative changes with how good the team is, right? Like if the team sucks, then we're just a bunch of haters, right? Oh,
I think even when the team sucks, I think it was even worse when the team sucked that we would carry water for the team, because we'd be like, yeah, this doesn't actually suck that badly. A lot of the times. Because we wouldn't. No. I think we'd get like we are cowards for not demanding the team to be sold.
That yes. I mean, we're treating our reviews as a monolith here. Like you're always going to get those kind of fans, right?
We haven't asked for reviews in a while. Probably because every time we did, I'd have to read something where it's like, Chris fucking sucks, get him off the podcast.
Sheila Ford Hamp, though, taking over kind of really did change things.
For now.
So, like,
for
ownership
just
kind of helped.
Well, the other part of that...
I'm waiting for a couple bad years just to really see it crawl back, though.
The other interesting thing that Justin Rogers pointed out in his Sheila Hamp review was like how 4 or 5 months onto the job, she has the announcement of Calvin Johnson to the Ring of Honor ceremony and just gets booed.
Yeah,
the ever living crap out of. And flash forward to training camp last year and everyone's chanting her name.
Yeah.
Doing that in a matter of 3 or 4 years is absolutely wild.
Crazy what winning does, huh?
Right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Let's get out of here.
Thank you. We needed a 3 verbal consents before we could do it.
That is democracy in action.
We all had to put our keys in and turn them.
That's right.
Yeah, at the same time. It's the only way the podcast will end.
No more live streams the rest of this week, unfortunately, unless breaking news happens, I suppose, which is not me hinting at breaking news. I don't expect breaking news because I'm going to be home all week. So why would they break news when that's happening?
Yeah. Why announce a JMO extension at this point? Roger Goodell should intervene and not allow the Lions to make such an announcement on the eve of training camp.
This is the time to do it. Eve, you're a month away. This is the time to do it. Announce all of the extensions now, Brad Holmes. You don't get a break.
Oh, my phone lit up, and I was hoping that it was like an Adam Schefter notification. It was like Aiden Hutchinson signs.
We still haven't had Tate Ratledge sign yet.
It's true. A lot of second rounders I don't think have signed yet. It's always the layup.
Yeah,
last
I think
ones.
it's always the last one, and I think we talked about it before. Like, I just kind of noticed that as I was going back through off-season like transactions and everything, and I'm like, oh hey, one name is missing here from the signings.
Maybe the Bengals podcast is talking about trying to trade for Tate Ratledge. Lions
just a 1-for-1 Shamar Stewart.
Do you think Lions fans would trade Tate Ratledge for Shamar Stewart straight up?
Oh, probably not, because again, it's Stewart. Like, I think Stewart's going to be fine in the NFL, but it's the lack of it's right. It was the A&M lack of production that everyone was like, I don't want to draft Stewart because he hasn't, he's done nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an easy answer before the Frank Ragnow retirement. Like, everyone would say yes.
Yeah. You would get vastly different answers before and after the draft.
Yes.
Yes.
Also true.
Yes. And also, yeah.
Before, and like you said, after Ragnow's retirement. Like, you would get different poll results after each of those.
Speaking of which, still not on the transaction wire. It's not officially retired yet. Hold out hope. Hold out hope that has no chance of turning into actual results.
I can't wait for the opinion piece. Frank Ragnow faked his own retirement to raise money for his foundation.
That's the money he was actually looking for the entire time.
Wow.
Steven Ruiz, suck it.
Tinfoil his hat. Tinfoil hat's in the chat.
Tinfoil his hat. I like that.
Tinfoil his hat.
Tinfoil his hat.
Coat his hat with tinfoil. Give it the sheen.
Quiet as a mouse.
Steady as a mouse. All right, we're leaving. We'll see you guys next week.